Oh, it's freaking freezing in here, Mr. Bigglesworth. Oh, man. Okay, it's starting to get a little colder, or a little warmer. It's getting there. It's getting there. It's getting there, but it is very freaking cold in here. So, weird thing, I set the power in here last night to make sure it was, I set the heater and everything to make sure that it was nice and warm. Right? And I came in just a second ago and all the my computer and the auto streaming computer was off, which I usually keep on, and my space heater was off. But the power wasn't out, and we didn't lose power, and we didn't trip a breaker either. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. Ooh. But also, the heck with that, because you know where it's colder? Right there.
Outbound trajectory correction burn was completed successfully this morning at 1:44 a.m. Eastern Time.
Oh my. Well, yep. Nope, my problems are irrelevant. Yep. Is this live? Yes. Yes, it is.
As I mentioned, Orion continues to grow closer to the moon. We are now only 7,166 miles away. That's a change of 100 miles since our first check-in this morning. You can track Orion's place in the flight all throughout at nasa.gov/track Artemis. As we grow closer to the moon, of course, we continue to distance ourselves from Earth, now over 233,429 miles away. Orion traveling at 415 miles per hour.
Today's a good day. Today is a good day.
When Orion conducts the outbound powered flyby burn this morning, it will propel it, it will change the delta velocity by 586 feet per second. This is a 2-minute and 30-second burn.
586
longer
feet
in
per
comparison
second,
to
boy.
some of those OTC burns we're seeing, which
Yes.
last typically 30 seconds or less.
Okay, all right. How much is that in meters? 150 meters a second, guys. Artemis is in retrograde. I mean, that is true. That is true, Mitch. How are you feeling otherwise? How much closer are they going to get? Catavase, maybe 140 kilometers off the surface. They're gonna mow the lawn here. Perigee, about 2 hours. It's not perigee immolated. It's a paracynthian or periloon. Perigee is Earth. Remember. Ha 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 ha! Yes, yes. 140. That's a bit high. No, that's extremely low. Pierogies. I mean, we have those, but not right now, Midge. It is approaching warmth in here. We're at 60 Fahrenheit in my office. It's great. Did I miss it or am I here on time? 9-5 moment. Look. There's a live shot, dude. How close are we getting? 80 miles should be Paracynthian.
Again, you're looking at obviously a live view of our closest celestial neighbor, the moon, as Orion continues to grow closer for its closest approach this morning. The outbound powered flyby burn will begin at 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 7:44. The outbound powered flyby burn will begin at 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 7:44. The closest approach itself will happen at about 7:57. Will be about 80 miles above the lunar surface. The outbound powered flyby is the first of a pair of maneuvers that's required to enter a distant retrograde orbit around the moon. The second will be the distant retrograde insertion maneuver.
Dro. Okay, this isn't working.
Distant retrograde insertion will happen on Friday. It's currently slated for coverage to begin at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For distant retrograde insertion itself to occur at 4:52 p.m.
I don't know why the heater shut off. Shame, the mannequin in the front seat could have been used. Shameless. I wouldn't want to be in that spacecraft right now. There's no life support. I don't have enough mats to do jumping jacks in the garage.
Just yesterday, we entered the lunar sphere of influence at 2:09 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll remain in that sphere of influence, meaning the moon has the greatest gravitational pull on Orion until we prepare for distant retrograde insertion. So we anticipate to exit the gravitational sphere of influence of the moon on Thursday, November 24th.
You'd trade oxygen for a close view of the moon? Oh. Okay. Is NASA recording this and storing the footage in 4K? Susie, yes. On the capsule. Yeah. These cameras they're broadcasting low quality stream so they can get, because all the telemetry from the capsule, all the signals from the capsule for all the systems on board are taking up most of the bandwidth. They're broadcasting in this, but the cameras are recording in 4K. I'm pretty sure that's what they said. What's the reason for not including life support? You'd think they'd want to give the system a stress test before Artemis 2. Life support's easy to test. Easy to test. It either works or it doesn't. Banana time. Yeah. It's like saying we got to make sure this light works. I'm pretty sure they could figure out if the light works or not. Believe it or not, they're pretty simple systems. They either work or they don't. You know what I mean? We got new high-res ICPS separation. I did see this footage yesterday. They did download higher resolution footage of upper stage separation. Look at this.
As the moon continues to grow larger in the frame of view, Orion is now less than 7,000 miles away, approximately 6,914 miles away from the moon. This animation, again, you can watch on nasa.gov/track Artemis any time of the day or night.
Watch this.
The spacecraft is traveling 438 miles per hour.
See ya. Yep. A lot of times people ask me, how does the decoupler work? Springs. Springs. Literally. Springs. Watch. So there's a captive nut down here, and a captive nut will, yep, there you go, see? Captive nut and explosive bolt fall down there, and then the springs decompress. That's literally how they do it. See, the springs are loaded right there, and springs. Doesn't have to be complicated. Oh, baby. How does the decoupler work? Question. YML models? Question. Yeah, they're just springs, 95. It just doesn't need to be complicated, dude. What is all that dust after the decoupling? It's just ice and stuff. I mean, Haji, you got to remember that each one of those tubes that are next to the springs is an explosive bolt. So it's an explosion, right? So why do I say it's ice? Well, the technical thing is that it's solid. It's solidified explosive residue. If you really want to know, yeah, Jason, me neither. This is good. And don't worry, dude. Don't worry about it the other day. It's all good. No problem. No problem. So you take that gas, right? The explosion, that the explosive gas is really hot, and you introduce it into the vacuum instantly. It gets really, really cold for like a split second, and then nothing because vacuum. So it solidifies, and then you get all those little flakes of whatever. Wait, it's been springs this whole time? Always has been. Is this a live stream from space? Live stream from deep space, man. You can see the separation system to the right of the RCS pod. Yep, yeah, there it is. Yup. Now see, this is what I wanted, dude. Not this picture, but I wanted live views here. Yeah, see? There it is. It's just springs. So there's the nut is...
As we grow closer to the moon and it continues to take up more and more of the frame, it's easier to make out some of those craters.
Nuts
and again,
up here,
this is a view
bolts
from
down
a
there.
camera mounted on the tip of one of the wings of Orion's solar arrays. There are 4 solar arrays on Orion, and in total, they can generate about 11 kilowatts of power.
I have no idea, Brox. The video is probably taking up a little amount of the bandwidth.
This helps Orion not rely on battery power the entire time, and is a major difference between the Orion capsule and the Apollo capsules, whereas the Apollo capsules used fuel cells instead of solar arrays.
And just like a nut, the stream is busted. Straight bussing. Orion's bussing right now. Haji, I have a question about those Lagrangian points. You said James Webb is orbiting Earth Sun L2. How do you orbit a gravitational 0 point, since nothing pulls towards the point?
We're now 6,700 miles away from the moon. Orion is traveling 456 miles per hour.
How do you orbit a gravitational 0 point? Because... all right, hold on. I could sit here and explain it, or I could just show you this. You orbit around here. See what I mean? Think of it like a kind of like a tide pool almost. Tide pool in a river, something like that. You orbit right here. You need thrusters to stay. You need thrusters, and you need a way to station keep, or else you'll fall out of it. But you can stay there. See what I mean? You could do the same thing at L1. Or you could do the same thing out at L4 like this. But yeah, there are neutral points in gravitational space. You could just kind of sit there. But you need thrusters to do it. But yeah, you can sit around.
Today we are covering the outbound powered flyby, currently scheduled for 2 hours and less than 14 minutes from now. That'll be at 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be targeting that closest approach at 7:57 a.m. when Orion will be about 80 miles above the lunar surface.
Yeah, Connor, I don't know. I've noticed that there hasn't been any
Flyby
videos
is a 2-minute and 30-second burn. This is the longest planned burn for Orion until the return powered flyby. Currently targeted at about 3.5 minutes.
When will humanity have a spaceport at Earth Moon L1? When we feel like it. I'm serious, Shameless. That's really the answer. We could put one there right now if we really wanted to. It's just we need to organize the effort. So it really comes down to when we want to. Just like we just decided to go back to the moon. You know what I'm saying?
While the outbound powered flyby burn sets us up for the distant retrograde insertion maneuver, The return powered flyby will instead prepare us and put us on the proper trajectory for our splashdown.
Now I have to warm this hat up, man. Do we have communications with Orion when the vessel will be on the far side of the moon? Nah, Slub. Yeah, there's a big moon in the way. Now, I know what people are going to ask. Oh, why not? Why, you know, it's 2022. Why can't we get a communication network over there? Oh, we absolutely can. But there's no real need for it. This is the only mission. This is one of the only missions. This and Artemis 2 are one of the only missions that are going to end up going like past the far side of the moon. NASA figured out a resonant orbit around the moon that basically makes it so you never go to the far side. There's a type of orbit where you never get over there, and that's where the gateway is going to go. And because you're never going to the far side of the moon, you can always stay in direct line of sight with Earth, so we don't have to worry about a communications blackout with the station. It's a type of eccentric polar orbit called a near rectilinear halo orbit, or NRHO for short. The NRHO orbits are a polar eccentric orbit around the moon with pericynthion over the North Pole and apocynthion over the South Pole. And that basically, using a combination of a high eccentric polar orbit and lunar precession, they can basically make it so the spacecraft never flies to the backside of the moon. It'll never happen. This is one of the only missions for this test flight where they're going to do it. But future Artemis missions, Artemis 2 notwithstanding, Artemis 2 will fly around the backside of the moon. Artemis 3 will not. Neither will 4, neither will 5. They're not going there because they don't need to. Does the Orion have windows for when astronauts are in it? There's 4 windows on it, Haji. Yep. Sparrow, basically, okay, so if you want to nerd the frick out, the rectilinear halo orbit basically makes it so the coplanar normal vector of the orbit is always facing towards Earth. So, long story short, if the moon was right here and you were going around like this, the reference frame between the Earth and the moon would always stay the same. Here, I can show you. Look. So over here is what you're looking for, right here. So watch this. Watch the Earth-Moon rotating frame. Watch this. So this camera is orbiting around the moon, or orbiting with the moon around Earth. See what I'm saying? That's what the NRHO orbit looks like. That's where it's going to go. See how it's always like if you drew a line between the Earth and the moon, the orbit's always perpendicular to that line, or the orbit is always perpendicular to that line. That's where they're going. So they don't need to worry about putting a communications network on the far side of the moon. You don't need to. You don't need to with how they're going to approach going to the moon this time. Now, once again, I can't say this enough. Artemis 1 is not doing this. Artemis 1 is in a distant retrograde orbit, which the orbit looks something like this. The DRO is something like that red line, like there. That's what it looks like. Now, I know it looks like a half of an orbit. What the heck's that about? That is changing eccentricity of your orbit. This is what it looks like with reference to Earth. Because they're only going to basically... So Orion's coming in, and they're going to do this inbound flyby maneuver, and then they're going to do capture. But honestly, this orbit is so ridiculously high up, the orbital period is like a month. And believe it or not, they're only going to be out there for a week, so they're only doing basically about...
Less than 2 hours and 8 minutes until the outbound powered flyby burn.
those are weird weird ways to say it. Basically, they're only going to be out in that retrograde orbit for like a half of the orbit itself. Yeah, they're using a super low energy transfer for DRO insertion. So it's yeah, they're only going to be in that retrograde orbit for like half of the orbital period. So it's going to do it like halfway around the moon, and then they're going to burn again, and then they're going to shoot back towards Earth. It's actually a pretty wild maneuver. Like Rich Parnell tier, if you get what I'm saying. How do they measure speed and distance to the moon when they are going to land? Laser or not? Radar. Radar altimeter works. Did Orion go around or punch through the Van Allen belts? It skirted them just like Apollo, if I'm remembering right. Let me place a bet on when this gets done, you're going back to bed. Yeah, that's probably... I don't know, man. It depends. I mean, we got to go all the way till the launch.
And even
at
though
11 p.m. my time tonight, so we got to, you know.
Orion will be passing around the far side of the moon today. We are currently at 233,349 miles away from Earth. This will not be our greatest distance from Earth during the mission. That will occur when Orion is in the distant retrograde orbit on next Monday, November 28th at 3:05 p.m. Central Time, 4:05 p.m. Eastern at 268,552 miles.
That's sweet. So we're not actually staying in orbit for a few days. Kraz, they're doing half of a distant retrograde orbit, and half of the DRO is going to take about a week, believe it or not. Yeah, the orbital period on a high eccentric maneuver, or a highly eccentric retrograde maneuver like that is, yeah, it's a really, really high orbit around the moon. Nando, what's going on? Let me play this. Okay, I already did. Olivia had already said. I already did that. Any idea on how long this stream is? Well, it's going to be for another 2 hours at least. Tonight's launch is at 9:57. Did they move it up? Oh, well, that's good for me. Literally checked this last night. How many kilometers is 80 miles? $128. It's gonna get pretty damn close to the moon. I got you, man. I can translate. Yeah. It's a very useful skill to have. No, they're gonna get pretty dang close. Oh. Signal handover. So, if you look, guys, what they've been doing is pointing the aft end of the spacecraft at the sun for better thermal on the capsule. So, I mean, this is just an animation here, but if you notice, the back end of the capsule and the rocket engine is pointed towards the sun. Because they have better thermal protection on the service module. Did they recover the orange rocket? No. All it is dust in the wind, dude. Okay, signal handover is complete. We're back on to a live shot here. Well, we see the Apollo 11 landing site. They're going to fly over it, but it's going to be on the far side, so we might not be able to see it exactly. I mean, you got to remember, they're still 128 kilometers away. That's still pretty damn far. If they're going through during the daytime, you might be able to see the shadow being cast from some of the descent modules. But from what I can tell here, looking at this, so, all right, check this out. So you see this gray splotch right there, and you know, you look at the moon, you see a lot. There's gray, and then there's like a lighter gray. those are different geological regions of the moon. Okay? So these are lunar highlands right here, and then the basaltic lower regions that's darker gray, those are the lunar lowlands. Right? So the lunar highlands is this like really, 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 really lighter kind of gray, almost white, powdery stuff. That's the high areas. Apollo landed in the low areas for the most part. They landed in the lunar basaltic regions. So here. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's not much of that on this side. So why is that pertinent? I'm pretty damn confident that it's going to be nighttime when they fly over the Apollo landing sites, which kind of sucks. So we won't really be able to see them too well. But a couple of years you'll be able to see them. With Artemis 2 should be passing over them. But I don't know. It really comes down to orbital mechanics if they're going to be passing over them in the day or the nighttime.
Discovery.
I do believe that in the press conference, NASA said this is flying over 11, 12, 14, and 17. So it's going to fly over the Sea of Tranquility. It's going to fly over Taurus Littrow. It's going to fly over... I forget where 12 landed. So Sea of Tranquility is where Apollo 11 landed. Taurus Littrow is where Apollo 17 landed. I forget where 14 and 12 landed. I know 12 landed next to Surveyor 3. Hey, Stavlin, 39-month resub. Thank you. Paul, what's going on, man? Would we be able to see anything from this distance? We wouldn't be able to see anything from this distance unless it gets closer. Guys, you know, like, look. The moon might be 1/6 the size of Earth, but it is still a big mother. It's a big celestial body. It's big. For us, it's not big for the solar system. It's actually really small. But it still is a pretty big planet. I say planet, it's not a planet, it's a celestial body. It's a moon. Differences. I get it. Tara, what's going on? Tara, I might need to throw up. Good morning, go to bed also hi. Good morning, no, hi. 14 landed on From Morrow. Yeah, that's where 13 was supposed to go. 7, thank you. $150, please. Nah, son. I don't want to look bad in front of my friends. Can't make me do that. That actually happened, and ironically, that's ridiculous. Okay. You need a telescope with a mirror 600 feet. Yeah, Haji, you can... With a powerful enough telescope, you can see them, but it's the thing is that it's just too small. The moon is huge. It's big. It's a big celestial body. It's pretty big. Nice, Tara. There you go. Nazgul, how are you? Yeah, see, we only... Okay, so judging by what I'm seeing here, we have... There's a slight basaltic lower region right there, and I'm pretty sure the Apollo sites are over here. It is bigger than Pluto. Yeah, no, the moon's pretty big for a moon. Like, for a moon, it's gigantic. So I'm pretty sure that in terms of, like, a reference frame, we're upside down. So the South Pole is over there, the North Pole is over here. Which means we're going that way around the moon. We're going to go around this side of the moon and go around. And if that's the case, the basaltic lower regions where Apollo landed is in the dark. That's no moon. Yes, it is. It's too big to be a space station. Hey, Dr. J. Isn't it about the size of Australia? That sounds about right, but I think it's, like, if you compared surface area, I think the moon's a little bit bigger. Mare Tranquility, how are you? You're in the dark right now. Could you please kind of skim through the video to see the difference in distance relative to the moon over time? Alright, how about we do a little bit of, let's mute it, do a little bit of this. How's that? That's pretty cool. You can see the spacecraft kind of drifting around. That's actually pretty rad. You can see they made a slight adjustment for better thermal right there. Oh man, that's cool. How long will they be streaming for? Another couple hours. And what retrothermal? What? Alleviate. Second part of that question got garbled. You're going into a tunnel. I tried to make sense of that. Didn't you say retrothermal? The backside of the spacecraft is pointed towards the sun for better thermals. Yes, I did not say retrothermal. What is that thumping noise I hear in the background? This is a keyboard. And you use it to input commands to a computer. I have no idea what, I don't hear anything. Is the sound with you in the room right now? Yes! Did we pass Paracynthian or Paraceline? No. That's in a couple hours. Off topic, but how does the Cyclone compare to other electric cars in GTA? It's pretty fast. May have been leg tapping, Gooners. I don't know. I get the happy feet going on purpose, guys. Yeah, you're probably hearing that. I keep the leg tapping going. I'm trying to get... I don't do it because I can't control that or anything. Like, I know people have, like, the happy feet or something. I do it because it's freaking cold in here. I'm trying to get blood flow. Like, here, check this out, dudes. That's the temperature in my office right now. It is pretty damn cold. And it's -3. See, outside it's pretty cold. Now, don't get me wrong. I know it. I know if you live in climate that is colder than that, yes, in fact, it's colder. Here's your gold star. It's cold for here, okay? I'm trying to keep the blood flowing in my freaking feet because it's cold in here. It is getting warmer in here, to be honest, though. Yeah, Animal, it was, what was it when I came in today? It was 43 degrees in the garage. Something shut the space heater off. I don't know what did it. We didn't have a power surge.
5,800 miles away from the moon and continuing to grow closer as we prepare for the outbound powered flyby burn targeted for 7:44 a.m. Central Time.
The mic stand actually is bumping against my light. It moved a little bit. Hold on. There. Shouldn't be as bad now.
Again, the outbound powered flyby burn is the first of a pair of maneuvers that we need to enter that distant retrograde orbit beyond the moon. Today's burn at 7:44 will bring Orion closest to the moon, about 80 miles above it, at 7:57 a.m. Eastern Time. We also expect to lose communication with the spacecraft as it passes behind the moon for 34 minutes, starting at 7:26 a.m., but we will stay on air until it reemerges and we regain communications. It will be with the Goldstone ground station as part of NASA's Deep Space Network.
Yeah, that's cool, man. All right, this is just, could you stir the tanks, please? Why would you put that juju on us? Why would you put that bad juju? What are you, nuts? This is a perfect example of why you need a heated hoodie or a jacket. I have a hoodie on right now. What propellant does Orion have? Monomethylhydrazine and dinitrogen tetroxide. You see that center engine on the service module, Anth?
Orion entered the lunar sphere of influence yesterday at 2:09 p.m. Eastern Time.
Fake. Yeah, we know it's fake.
That means the moon instead of the Earth is the main gravitational force acting on the spacecraft. Additionally, this morning, Orion completed the fourth outbound trajectory correction burn. These are pre-planned burns to keep Orion on course throughout the mission.
Why'd you put that juju on us, Paul?
What
are you doing?
At 7:44 a.m. Oh, sorry.
You missed channel points redemption.
1:44 a.m. Eastern Time. We are targeting 7:44 a.m. for the outbound powered flyby.
I'm not going in the garage. Frick you. Taradra would dream that. Screw that guy. What is going to be the periapsis for the flyby? 80 miles, 128 kilometer paracynthian. Do some star jumps to keep warm. Screw channel points. I mean, I may not like Serious Potato Bot, but I actually kind of agree. You said blood flow. Dude, you ain't gonna get blood flow out there. I'm just trying to heat this room right now. I'm not heating the main garage. I have the door shut. Dude, it's like ambient in the garage. Let's not go out there. Let's not go there. It is a silly place. Yeah, hypersonic. They're gonna get close, but it's Paraloon is on the far side, so we might. They keep saying we're not gonna have communication over there, but I don't care. I'm in it for this view. Look at this. No, he's caught the British cold. Instead of he's sipping a hot cup of morning tea. If I ever request tea on this stream, Tic Tac, I've been compromised. Unsub immediately. Okay? I've been compromised. Okay? It's like in Vietnam where they made that guy say, people are treating me nice here, and he's blinking in Morse code and it says torture. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, literally that. I've been compromised. You know what I mean? Please proceed to come here and throw me into a body of water. Look at me. Damn. Tea's pretty tasty. Don't knock it till you try it. Wheatley, please find the nearest body of water and proceed to jump into it. Wait, what makes you think I haven't tried tea before? I'm not really a fan of Earl Grey, to be like 100% honest with you. What is the other type of... What's the type of tea that I drank for a long time? I forget. It wasn't Earl Grey, it was another type of tea. Lipton? No. No, it was, tea. Aren't you from Boston? Yeah, I don't drink tea no more. We don't do that. Coffee is way better. No. Filter the plant. Why would you filter the plant when you could filter the bean? Go right to the source. What's wrong with you? Yeah, Taradra, we don't want to go. We don't want to go out there. It's really, really cold in there. Yeah, we don't need to go. We don't need to go out there. On second thought, let's not go to the garage. It is a cold place. Peppermint Black, Darjeeling, there are loads. I forget what I was drinking. You filter the bean and you smoke the leaf. Yeah, what? We hear music from the garage capture, by the way. Nice. Cool. Yeah, I have the goal. I have Fallout music playing in there. Just because.
Now just 5,520 miles from the moon and approaching. Again, this is nasa.gov/track Artemis. You can keep up with Orion's mission and its location during the flight at any time. We continue to increase in velocity as well, now approaching 600 miles per hour. And at the time of the outbound powered flyby burn, we'll be traveling at 5,023 miles per hour. Outbound powered flyby burn will be executed 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time, 1 hour and 47 minutes from now.
All right, so they're 9,600 kilometers from the surface of the moon. And she said they were traveling at like, 400 miles an hour. So they're going 640 kph. They did insert into the lunar grav well. Not insert. They crossed SOI transition, sphere of influence transition, into the moon a little while ago. So Orion is accelerating. And it will accelerate all the way to Paralune, or Paraselene, or Paracynthian. You could say whatever, you call it whatever you want. The lowest point in your orbit around the moon. Now, keep in mind, fellas, I don't really need to talk about this too much. I don't really get to talk about this too much, but because the vast majority of rocket launches that we cover here are around Earth, right? But you have, if for the Kerbal players, you have apoapsis and periapsis. You know this. Highest and lowest point in your orbit. Those words change depending on what celestial body you're orbiting around. Now, on the moon, instead of apogee and perigee, which is what it is on Earth, what it is when you're orbiting around Earth, around the moon, it's apolune and paralune, or Paraselene and aposelene, or Paracynthian and apocynthian. You could call it whatever. All three of those names, they have three names for it. I don't know why. Let's just say Paralune because Luna, because moon. So, Paralune is the fastest and lowest point of an orbit. They are approaching it right now. Orion will speed up all the way until it's Paralune. And then after that, it'll start slowing down. Because of gravity. Yeah, because of gravity. Gravity do be like that. What's the slowest? 400 miles an hour, you said? Yeah, Haji. That's like, 400 is like a little below, it's like 580 kilometers an hour, something like that. It's pretty slow for a spacecraft, but that's what happens when, you're in a lower grav well. You don't need to go as fast. Peopleapsis. Yes, the peopleapsis. Yep. Peopleapsis. I like that. Feels good, man. We will call it that from now on. Is the edge of the SOI where net acceleration equals 0? For the most part, immolated, yeah. Happy peopleapsis. Apoapsis and periapsis are the generic term. Drummer. What velocity do you think we'll hit around Paralune? 1,000 miles an hour, probably a little more. Well, about 1,000 miles an hour. It should be somewhere. It should be between 1,000 and 2,000, I think. I don't have the orbit up in front of me. It's hard to tell, but it's not gonna get. It shouldn't be above 2,000. Please hold. Yeah, it shouldn't be above 2,000 miles an hour. I do believe they actually said it during the last press conference that we watched. They said orbital speed at Paralune is 1.5 kilometers a second, that's about 1,000 miles an hour, give or take. That's correct, Morrison. Selene is Greek, Lune is Latin. Just like Geo and Terra. That's why. Yep. When the NASA PDO chimes in again, I'll tell you. But also, that's a moon. You know what? I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go over here so you guys can see that. Can you believe that? Now,
6 a.m. Eastern Time, and we are now 1 hour and 44 minutes away from the outbound powered flyby burn.
Sadie?
Orion is now 5,335 miles away from the moon and continuing to grow closer, traveling 619 miles per hour.
You guys want me to do this? You guys want me to speed up, make sure we're all caught up. Down in front, you're blocking an orbital body. Yeah, no, I changed that. They did, Biz, yep. We need Bill, Bob, and Jeb in the bottom right. Yeah.
Discovery, go at throttle.
Rudy. V Gates. There we go. All right, we're caught up. No need for SSRP, Hibbit. It's an outbound powered flyby maneuver to adjust. I believe this outbound powered flyby maneuver is going to adjust the argument of perigee on the orbit to make sure that they get a proper DRO insertion burn. Will it land on the moon today? No, Joe. This one's just going to fly around it. Think good und so good. So good, mein Freund. Danke. Oh. Moon looking quite egg-shaped. I mean, GG, the thing is that it, yeah, it pretty much is. It's not a perfect circle. Nothing is. So, Joe, yeah, this one is going to take...
Again, you are watching live coverage ahead of the outbound powered flyby burn as we prepare to make our closest approach to the moon. It'll be about 80 miles above the lunar surface. This is the second burn that will be executed this morning. The first occurred successfully at 1:44 a.m. Eastern Time. That was the OTC-4 burn, which stands for Outbound Trajectory Correction Burn, ensuring Orion is on the proper path for its future mission.
So, Joe, this thing's going to fly around the moon, and it's going to kind of park out there in a high orbit for a little bit, and then come home. What they're really trying to do with this mission, guys, is basically test the Orion capsule's ability to just kind of sit out there and do nothing. Why? What do you mean, sit out there and do nothing? Well, okay. Orion is a beyond low Earth orbit capsule, okay? So if we're going to make like an analogy to like a car or a truck, right? This thing is an RV, okay? It's like a caravan, okay? So Orion is like, how I like to say it is that Orion is like half satellite, half capsule. It can go into kind of satellite mode, or it can work like a regular capsule. Right now, what they're doing basically is testing Orion's satellite mode. Does that make sense? So that's why, Joe, they're gonna send it out there. And right now, believe it or not, Orion and the European Service Module are basically in free return. So if they just keep going, it'll shoot back to Earth for the most part. I mean, they'd need some trajectory modifications, but when they get to the moon, they're going to execute a burn to put it into a very, very high orbit around the moon that's in retrograde. So it's called a distant retrograde orbit, DRO for short. So you'll hear them talking about it. That distant retrograde orbit is basically a high orbit where they're just going to park it around the moon to test the deep space capabilities of the capsule. Basically, can it sit out there? Can it do nothing? Is the sun going to fry something on board? Stuff like that. I'll try to give you a picture of what I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah, this is a good picture. This is a picture right from NASA. Give me one moment. It is extremely high res too. So that's all. That's good. All right. So check it out over here. This is what I'm talking about. So right now they're over here. Orion is coming in right here. They shot it on a low energy transfer, so it's not like kind of a direct shot out to the moon like Apollo. Basically what they did when they burned the ICPS is put Orion out here. Put Orion out there so the highest point in its orbit kind of crosses the moon's path, and then when it gets to the highest point in its orbit, the moon will pull it in. Now, don't get me wrong, they did do something like that during Apollo, right? But Apollo was a much higher energy transfer. It did not take nearly as long as this one. And once again, the reason why this one took a little bit longer is because RV, the capsule's an RV. They're trying to go camping with it. You know what I mean? It's designed to stay out there for long periods of time. So they wanted a low energy transfer where they could keep Orion out past the magnetic field in deep space for longer periods of time. Right now, we're approaching the OPF right here, outward powered flyby. They're going to change the argument of perigee, right? And they're going to shoot around the moon, and then they'll do a slight radial in-burn to change it to a distant retrograde. And then Orion's going to be out here for about a week, and they're going to do half. They're going to do half of a distant retrograde orbit, which is why if you just trace the spacecraft's trajectory, it looks like the orbit around the moon looks like a D, right? So they're going to do half of an orbit, and then they're going to do the DRO departure, and then an outward powered flyby, and then send it home. So they're going to do half of that distant retrograde orbit, and then they're going to shoot back around the moon, which is actually, it's pretty crazy, dude. This is pretty nutty stuff for orbital mechanics. It's actually really cool. But yeah, they're going to park her out here, and they're just going to measure telemetry from the capsule for the most part. Is the low energy transfer a money thing, or is it also better and safer? Low energy transfer is because SLS has a dinky upper stage to start with. I guess a better upper stage wasn't in the cards. Not until Artemis 4, at least. So, yeah, we're going towards outward powered flyby, or outbound powered flyby right here. They're going to adjust the orbit so they get a good insertion. So they're in a good trajectory for lunar distant retrograde orbit insertion over here. And the thing's just going to... And then they're going to get over here and literally do the exact opposite of what they did for LOI right here. Per the press kit, DRO insertion is at FD10. DRO departure at FD16. Return flyby at FD20. Yes. We're going back over here. Flight day. Yep, I figured that's what that meant. The big plan is to send later a space shuttle with this capsule on it and happy little humans. You don't need a shuttle. So the next mission, Artemis 2, Joe, they'll do something very similar to this, but with people on board.
Now approaching 4,900 miles away from the moon. Again, a large distance change in the time that we've been on air, less than an hour now. We originally started at over 7,000 miles away from the moon.
Something like that, analog. It's a short duration.
We're traveling
mission.
at 684 miles per hour. And just to put it in perspective, we are now 233,190 miles away from Earth. This is all in preparation for the outbound powered flyby burn. That'll be at 7:44 a.m. Eastern, 1 hour and 34 minutes from now.
They're 372,800 kilometers from
Teams
Earth
are tracking no issues ahead of the outbound powered flyby burn. This is the first of two maneuvers that will put us in the distant retrograde orbit beyond the moon.
When are they going to deploy the JAXA rover? There's no JAXA rover on this mission, Nephilim. Yeah, Tom Pom. On Artemis 2, they'll be doing something very similar to this. Artemis 2 is a free return. So if you look up Apollo 8, Apollo 8's trajectory, that's what they're doing for Artemis 2. That will test the human-rated capabilities of the capsule. And then Artemis 3 will combine all that together, and then SpaceX is going to send a lander out there, and Orion will dock with the lander in a rectilinear halo orbit, and then they'll land. Remember Apollo 8? Can't say Apollo 8 without Bill freaking ruining it. That was a joke. There is a JAXA lander, but last I've heard they lost contact with it. If that's one of the secondary payloads, Nephilim, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. That moon is getting a little bigger, though. It was one of the CubeSats. Cool. Thank you. I totally forgot. Nephilim, you're going to have to excuse me. It's still a little early over here. Yeah, I guess that was one of the secondary payloads, Vasia. I totally forgot about it, Nephilim. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, I've been a little distracted by that thing. Wow, look at that little guy. Interesting, Thomas. So, Nephilim, here's the update. At the moment, we cannot carry out the original planned landing method, but if we recover by the end of the day, we will decelerate with the SRB when passing the Perloon point and free fall to the surface of the moon. You can do that. Perloon passage is tonight at 2400 JST. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, Rasak, yeah, I may have been a little bit distracted by what's going on, you know, here and you know, here. You know, this thing and this thing. Not here or here so much, but like right here and right here. Those two things are pretty cool. When do you think we'll land on the moon again, Silent Storm? That was a signal handover. Late 2024, 2025, somewhere around there. Guys, you got to remember, Artemis 2 is not that far
You're
away.
looking at a
We're
view
about
from
16 months out.
nasa.gov/track Artemis, also known as Arrow, the Artemis real-time orbit website. You can log on at any time, day or night, and any phase of the mission and check out what Orion is doing and where it is in relation to the moon and the Earth. You can see here we are now 4,722 miles from the moon and continuing to grow closer, traveling 715 miles per hour.
Yeah, the next mission is not that far out in spaceflight terms. It's really close, actually, like to the point where you kind of need to get this mission done fast. Do you know something about taking resources on asteroids like metals or gases? Yeah? What about it? Yeah, sure, Joe. It's totally possible. Absolutely. We don't have the technology to do that right now, but NASA's working on it, believe it or not. NASA's work, you know, everybody says like, "Oh, NASA's working on it." So, you want some kind of reference for the progress that's being made there. You have the Lucy mission, which is going to actually survey a set of Trojan asteroids, the sets of asteroids that are stuck in L4 and L5 around Jupiter. It's going to survey those. It's going to do a flyby. And then
now less than an hour and a half until the outbound powered flyby burn. Again, this is a 2-minute and 30-second burn. It'll take place around the far side of the moon and commits Orion to entry into distant retrograde orbit. There's a second part that's necessary, the distant retrograde insertion burn. That'll happen on Friday, November 25th, and that'll put us in the proper distant retrograde orbit.
So, and then there's the Psyche mission, which is going to go to one of those asteroids. Now, in terms of like where NASA's at, so the latest astronaut class that NASA hired, so the latest, you know, round of astronauts that they recruited, they had an oil drilling specialist. Yeah, she's a Canadian astronaut, if I'm remembering correctly. I totally forget her name. I'm totally blanking. But she is a drilling expert for oil. Gee, I wonder why NASA would do that. Yeah, literally Armageddon. Isn't that so? I mean, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be doing stuff like that unless they were thinking about mining things in some way, shape, or form. Don't get me wrong, it's most likely going to be this thing, but still, also, it was not Bruce Willis. No. I thought NASA uses metric. NASA does use metric, Sky Captain. But U.S. taxpayers paid for this, so it's in America units. Drilling for that sweet, sweet water. Drill, baby, drill. Indeed. Don't worry. I speak freedom units. So I will be able to translate for him. You need a translation, you ask me. You want to talk to the dolphin? You talk to me. What happened to the regular? What happened to him? What happened to me? 7 years I've made the grade. We are making the dolphins disappear and then Roy is coming with the white tiger and the stuffing in the pants und left Kong. How many bald eagles is 14 quarts? Yep. Yes. What changed from the post? I don't know, Blinga. I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, the Imperial units from the British Empire and they conquered like 90% of the world. Are they really freedom units? Well, that's what we call cultural appropriation. We appropriated that unit and made it a symbol of oppression to a symbol of freedom. Yeah, that's how that works. Sure. Apache, open the pod bay doors, please. Which unit do you prefer? I don't care. Deal about it. The unit of measurement does not concern me. To be 100% honest with you, yeah, that pisses people off when I say that, but I don't care. I really don't. Just go to the moon. Just make sure everybody's on the same page with your measuring system. You can use miles, you can use kilometers, you can use millimeters or thousandths of an inch. I don't care. Just make sure everybody's using the right thing. I convert 100 kilometers to Big Macs.
Now less than 4,500 miles away from the moon, continuing to grow closer ahead of the outbound powered flyby burn. Again, we're looking for that burn in an hour and 25 minutes from now, 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time. Orion is traveling at 757 miles per hour. This is a live view from the spacecraft itself. It is from a camera mounted on one of the solar array wings.
I'm with you on that one, Josh.
We will lose communication with the spacecraft as it passes behind the moon.
Correct, Trainman.
That loss of communication will occur for approximately 34 minutes, and again, we're tracking that here. That loss of communication will start at 7:26 a.m., so 1 hour and 7 minutes from now.
Indeed, shameless. Yeah, indeed.
We'll remain on air throughout the time that Orion is out of reach from our satellites here on Earth.
Why can we live stream from here but not Mars? Mars is a little bit further away, Dumpster Dog. Yeah. That's pretty much the reason. Yeah, it's a little bit further away. Keep in mind that Mars distance actually gets really far away, and then kind of far away, and then really far away again. What's the difference between Orion and the moon at the moment? Maybe like 20,000 miles, so 32,000 kilometers, somewhere around there. That's a guess just by looking at this. I'd have to listen to the PAO when she says it. It's just a little bit further, dude. Yeah, Mars is a long way away. There would be a nasty delay, and honestly, we don't really have. We'd have to have a higher bandwidth relay out there. That's really what it is. You need more relay satellites. There's space infrastructure, guys, for communication, just like there's cell towers everywhere. You need some way to relay the communications. We need more cell towers in space. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The infrastructure out at Mars right now is really good enough for, like, you know, doing more scientific stuff. Like, they can control from Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. They can control most of the stuff that's there, but it's really not enough bandwidth for a live stream, which is interesting because it definitely is enough bandwidth for a live stream. Yeah, you heard that right. There's not enough bandwidth for a live stream, but there is enough bandwidth for a live stream. I said that correctly. Now, what does that mean? Most of the bandwidth from the connection is being used to relay telemetry in science. And Orion is the same way. And they said that this was the reason why we didn't get live views, but also, which is kind of strange. But I know for a fact on Mars that that's what's going on. They don't really there's no point to live stream. What are you going to see? You're just going to see a picture of Mars, and it's just going to be the same picture tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Now, with that being said, they do take pictures, and they show us pictures all the time. They're posting pictures of the mast cam on Perseverance and Curiosity pretty much all the time. Hey, Nomac, thank you for the raid. What were you up to? We're just watching a spacecraft approach the moon. That is being live streamed right now. That's just a NASA spacecraft going near the moon. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's why I'm up at 6:20 in the morning, because that doesn't happen all the time. Nice, Deadly. There you go. Darkest Dungeon 2. We watched the launch earlier in the week, though. Nice. Nice. There you go. What's up, Nomac Raiders? How are you doing? What would be the cost of increasing bandwidth? More satellites? More relays? Yeah. Yeah, you need more relays. More cell towers, quite literally. Space always has fancy terms for things, Slavkovsky. They call them relay satellites. Cell towers. You need more cell... It's literally the same thing. You need more cell towers. You need something to bounce a signal off of. It's midnight here. Why couldn't they do this at a more convenient time? Orbital mechanics is a harsh mistress. Has NASA got a plan for more communication satellites around Mars? I'm sure they're looking into it, Drummer, but no, there's no need for it right now. At least early hours means we can come say hi. There you go. Cool. Thank you for the raid, man. I appreciate it. So you're saying we need to construct additional pylons. That's exactly what I'm saying, yes. We got plenty of supply. Just need more pylons. You must construct additional pylons. Yeah, Mayor. I mean, maybe. Yeah, Dish. I wouldn't be surprised. Does NASA need more Vespine gas? No, we're good. Battle cruiser operational. Hailing frequencies open. Good day, Commander. Anyway, Nomac, much love, buddy. I do appreciate it. Is SpaceX looking to set up their own communications infrastructure to support their Mars missions? Deadscum, I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't looking into that right now. I mean, yeah, probably. They're getting some pretty good experience with, space telecommunications. They for reasons. They're getting pretty good at it. Oh. What do you think of the camera view? I don't hate it.
Orion is now 4,182 miles away from the moon, 233,089 miles away from our home of planet Earth. This is a live view from the Track Artemis, or the NASA.gov/Track Artemis feature. It's a telemetry-driven animation called Arrow, the Artemis real-time orbit website that you can access anytime during the mission. That allows you to keep a look at where Orion is and what phase of the mission it's in, as well as take a look at what's coming up next for the spacecraft. What's coming up next this morning is the outbound powered flyby burn at 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time, when Orion will be 328 statute miles above the moon. This prepares us for the closest approach at 7:57 a.m. Eastern Time, when Orion will be just 81 statute miles above our lunar neighbor.
Antagonist, you can hold it.
Currently, the spacecraft's traveling 824 miles per hour, and during the time of OPF, the spacecraft will be traveling at 5,023 miles per hour.
So it's going 1,300 kph. We are 372,800 kilometers from Earth. and we're approaching the moon. And currently we're 6,500 kilometers up from the moon. So 372 from Earth, 6,500 kilometers from the moon, traveling at about 1,300 kilometers an hour. Is Orion visible now for the ones at night, like you see satellites flying by? No. I don't think you'd be able to see it with any telescope on the ground. Basically an Earth radius away. For the most part, yeah. And subtext, yep. Imagine they had this during Apollo. They did have this during Apollo. Well, not the 3D view, but yeah. That'd be sweet. Starlink is a prototype, isn't it? Yeah, that's yeah, I would call it that, yeah. Yeah, Deadly. Yeah, SDX Paraloon around the moon is going to be about 80 miles, so 128 kilometers above the moon. We won't really get to see that because it's going to be on the far side of the moon when they do that, so there's going to be a little bit of a communications blackout. That's happening in about an hour and 15 minutes, give or take. What are you trying to convert, Hooded? 0.837 kilometers an hour to miles an hour? Uh, 0.837 kilometers an hour is like 1.2 miles an hour. Oh, 837 miles an hour meters. What? From telemetry. I'm very confused. Meters per hour. Kilometers an hour. Yeah, okay. Yeah, 1,300. It's going 1,300 kilometers an hour right now. It is accelerating, though. She's accelerating because the moon's pulling it in. Caught in a tractor beam. It's pulling us in. I know, Weed. It's gonna be insane. We had telemetry earlier. Where is it gone? The telemetry rendered animation has the telemetry. I'd prefer the live view, to be honest with you. If they were to design a modern TGIS for the moon, how big would it be? School bus sized or Starlink sized? It would be as small as as small as you could possibly go, Blinga. But see, there's the thing, man. You're not gonna. I'm not saying that NASA couldn't do it. There's just not really that much reason why. Because, guys, the moon is. There's not many stable orbits around the moon, to be honest with you. Most of them decay, and most of them are nowhere near resonant. There are orbital perturbations around the moon because of non-uniform gravitational pull. So maintaining a network up there would be a real big pain in the butt. More like almost as bad as it would be on Earth. That's why NASA chose the rectilinear halo orbit for Gateway, because it's stable resonant. I don't know what the satellites would look like, dude, to be honest, though. I have no idea. It really depends on the use case. Like, it depends on what you're trying to do, you know? What are you trying to communicate with? Are you trying to communicate with the ground?
We are now less than 4,000 miles away from the moon. Actually, 3,900 to be exact, traveling at 876 miles per hour. We are 1 hour and 12 minutes away from the outbound powered flyby burn, scheduled for 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time. Everything on track for the burn this morning. At closest approach after the burn, we will be just 80 miles above the lunar surface. Again, this is an uncrewed flight test. We have no astronauts aboard the Artemis 1 mission. We're doing
What will be the fastest in the mission that Orion speeds up to? Entry interface is going to be quite high, somewhere near like Mach 28.
We're doing this mission in preparation for astronauts to fly aboard for Artemis 2 and our future missions in the Artemis program.
With moon gravity, would it be easier to drop tall deployable cell towers on the moon surface rather than launching communication satellites that need station keeping? Cell towers? Probably. Yeah. Yes, I would say, yeah, that would probably be an easier thing. But you'd have to have the surface infrastructure to be able to do something like that. You could. Sure. Why not? The burn moment. Will that be calculated on the Orion's computer, or will that be command given from Earth? It's the computer. Yeah, Zero, I'm with you, man. You can build taller on the moon than on Earth, too. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, Animal, for sure. Absolutely. Is that wires running around the outside? I thought they would be all inside. Those wires look like they're used for the separators right there, meaning that they've already been used and they don't need to use them again. They don't need to separate from anything. Hi, is this live footage? Yep. Live shot of the moon. We're about 4,000, a little under 4,000 miles off the surface of the moon, so that's about, what is that, somewhere in the ballpark, like 6,200 kilometers up. Closest approach to the moon here for the Artemis 1 capsule is going to be about 80 miles, or about 128 kilometers. Do I understand correctly that SpaceX is going to have 2 launches in about 18 hours from Florida? Maybe, Shinar. I'm going to go ahead and guess that one of them will probably get pushed. Is that getting visually closer? It's hard to see on mobile. Here, let me allow me to do this. Let's just go back over here and da-dum, da-da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Yeah, it's getting closer. You want to see where we started? That's where we started. That's a blue screen. Of course, I did it right during signal handover. Yeah, we are a little bit closer. See the difference? Yeah, we're a little closer. Yeah. Got to get closer to one of the big ones. Closer. All right, so Orion's velocity right now is 917 miles an hour. I don't know why they labeled that as MH. It's MPH would probably be better. But yeah, 919 miles an hour. That's about 1,500 kilometers an hour. 372,000 kilometers from the surface of Earth, and they are about 6,000 kilometers off the surface of the moon now. When will they use inflatable heat shield? This mission doesn't have an inflatable heat shield. It's about 5 days, Drummer, yeah. They discovered... Oh, Thomas, here we go. NASA discovered that DSN 34-meter dishes can handle greater bandwidth than previously analyzed, so this will allow more live video streaming and imagery downlink. NASA.gov will start carrying the feed at all times. Sorry, there will still be some gaps. Hell yeah! Man, I really wish they discovered this like a week ago. That would have been great, but hey, you don't know until you go. Pretty pog! That's good. Oh, fantastic. And that's from Zeb Scoville, who's a flight director at NASA. So yes, yeah, we are good. They just discovered that, hey, you won't go until you know. You won't know until you go. When you gotta go, you gotta go. Something like that. Hey, that's my motto. That's good to know, man. I already went. Thanks, though. Yeah. Gotta have that morning waste evacuation procedure. One comment says that the feed is stretched to 16.9. Is that true? It looks like it might be a little bit, or the focal length on the camera is a little bit high. I mean, Dr. J, that could be anything. They could be stretching to a 16:9, or it could be the focal length on the camera. Hi, they listen to your complaints. More or less. Next, how close is Orion going to fly by? 128 kilometer apocynthian. Or paracynthian, excuse me. 128. We're going to get pretty damn close. Squished it to 4.3 and the moon looks right. It looks correct in 4.3, so it's probably very stretched. Yeah, NASA. The arbiters of good live streaming. No, all the budget went into this thing over here. Are they recovering so we can see Paraloon after the fact? No, Hypersonic. They're going to take the footage and they're going to wipe their butt with it when it comes back down. Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. That's frack. Just measure the circles. They're round, bro. No stretch. It could be a bunch of different things, dude. It could be the focal length on this camera, like I'm saying, but no one's listening. But it's alright. Hypersonic, they're gonna take the film and just do the, clean down there with the towel. Ha 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 ha! You can't look at it. Ha 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 ha! They're not gonna do that. They're gonna show it. Yeah, Orion's. I think it'd be a good time to explain some context to that. Not the film wiping your butt with. They're going to take the footage. Orion's cameras are recording everything in 4K, and when they recover the capsule, they're locally recording in 4K, but they're live streaming obviously in a lower resolution for bandwidth concerns. What did I just tune into? Nothing. See you tomorrow in class, Miss Vaughn. Oh, yeah, Jib. Yeah, yep. Nope. Yep. I mean, okay, to be 100% fair, okay? Not fair. Screw it. It's not fair to nobody. The moon is not perfectly spherical. It does have a non-uniform gravitational pull. Earth does too. Yeah. The moon is egg-shaped. It's slightly eccentric in its spheroid shape. To be fair. Yeah, everybody likes saying oblate spheroid, but if I say that to people that don't understand what oblate spheroid means, they go, yep. No, it's not perfectly round. That's because the center of, if you took Earth and you had an indicator to show where the center of mass is and where like the geometric center is, they're offset, which is part of the reason why Earth does this. It weeble wobbles around. Here comes the analogy. It's like a giant spinning Jello mold. I hate Jello. Oh, come on, man. There's always room for Jello. Back off, man. I'm a scientist. Jello mold? No, oh, come on, man. There's always room for Jello. Yeah, Animal, that's the reason why I think it might just be a weird focal length. I don't think this is like necessarily 4:3 stretched to 16:9. I think it's just a weird focal length on this camera. It might be like 16:9 stretched to like 16:10 or something because like, look, you saw the wrapping too, right? Like that's why I was like, I don't know if it's just that. Maybe, who knows? Once we get close, will there be a picture of Stanley Kubrick's satellite on the surface? Yes. No. Maybe? Does the J in your name stand for Jello question? Blen Jello question? Yeah, these are funky cameras. The cameras that are up in space are usually not necessarily like the cameras that we have down here. They're definitely different. Eric Jello Space Administration. Yep. Short focal length to catch spacecraft and the moon at the same time. That would be my guess too, Kinder. But yeah, I mean it could be stretched 16:9. What I'm telling you is I don't know. Could be a bunch of different things. I don't think anybody can conclusively say that it's a stretched image or not unless we like go ask NASA. Convert 1 kilometer to Jello. Hey. Alucard, you're talking. You're not allowed to know what the Jello unit is. That's just for Americans. We measure stuff in Jello molds. You're not allowed to know about the secret Jello measuring system. Would you believe that we had something like that? You would, wouldn't you? Yeah. You're not allowed to know. Looking at the image, the moon gets oblong wrapped around where you're sitting. What superpowers are you not telling us about? Well, physicists, I'm telling you that I'm fat and I am perturbing the moon somehow. But how many Jello shots go into a Jello mold? Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to, buddy. Don't want questions. Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to, pal. Right. I really do like this shot, though. This is a live shot from a spacecraft that's going to the moon. That is pretty cool. Gravitational lensing for the win. Yeah, no. Yeah, that's pop. Yeah, you might be right, bro. I'm no expert, but I agree with the wide-angle distortion. The official term is barrel distortion. You're a towel, but yeah, I mean, it could be a bunch of different things, Heavy. I don't know. I hope Orion is blasting Eurobeat. All right, okay. Oh, yeah, Marley. It's pretty cool. Well, we have the Stratzen, Bratzen, Lasten, Watson system. Don't know, I just wanted to write something very German. Reichsgeschlussverfahren. I got your back, dude. And nobody knows about that zipper merge. You have such a delicate way of saying, wow, that question is, wow. I try, Fract, I try. I try to disappoint you in all new and exciting ways. Wait, what? Oh, that's a pretty good shot. Looks like I almost got it right. Yeah. New here. Why are we looking at the moon? Well, we're looking at a spacecraft, a human-rated spacecraft. Nobody's on board, but a human-rated spacecraft approached the moon. This is the first time in 50 years, give or take, that this has happened. Kind of a big deal. Also, we're getting a live stream shot of a camera that's mounted on the end of the solar panel of a capsule going towards the moon. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Yeah, we're freshly. I'm a STEM streamer. I teach people about space and stuff, and yeah, I wouldn't miss this for the world or moon. I wouldn't miss this for the cheese. Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's going to get very close, Jib. 128 kilometer paraloon. So we're getting a little bit of a close shave here. Don't worry, that's on purpose. So for America, it's 80 miles. 80 miles up. We're going to get pretty freaking close, dude. That was too cheesy. You crackers me up. Please don't do what I do. Drummer, please don't do what I do. Oh, shoot, EJ Wallace forgot the crackers and the cheese. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, you forgot the crackers and the cheese. You better be laying some train tracks, while you're riding the train. You know what I'm talking about? All the way back. Let's do it, man. It's only 372,000 kilometers back to Earth, or about 230,000 miles at this point. Yeah, it'll be fine. We have enough train track, right? Ah, yes. The clap-on came on. There we go. Yeah, they are messing with the exposure. I see 3 lights. There are 4, actually. Yeah, they switched off dark mode. Bloody amateurs.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Hey, Lord. 32-month resub. What's going on, buddy? Why the flashbang? Flashbang through the door. Sprint to the finish. I think you mean 5 lights. No. I don't. There are 4 lights. The next mission is going to be an Apollo 10 type low altitude flyby, or they're actually going to land it. Bombshell, we're looking at the next mission, Artemis 2, is going to be more like 8. It's more like 8, less like 10. 10, they did a circularization around the moon and then tested the lander. 2 of my favorite astronauts were on that mission. Gene Cernan and John Young. 2 bad melon farmers of astronauts. No, this is going to be more like 8 with Level Anders and Borman for Artemis 2, where they do a free return around the moon. It's going to be more like that. There are 4 lights! Yes. Orion, when the moon orbited. Oh, come on. Don't do that to me. Yeah, no problem, dude. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one right now, though, is kind of different. There was no Apollo mission that was exactly like this one. The reason why, there's a short explanation for this. Even the short one is a little long. Long story short is Orion is kind of like half satellite, half capsule. What Artemis 1 is doing is testing kind of the satellite capabilities of this thing.
We're continuing to bring you live
Artemis 2 is going to be measuring the capsule
outbound powered
stuff.
Flyby of Orion, now scheduled for 53 minutes and 30 seconds from now.
This one is Shaw. It's going to be circularizing
Orion
in a high
is already in the moon's
orbit.
sphere of influence. And yesterday, the team completed a successful outbound trajectory correction burn. This burn helps set us up for the OPF burn, again, coming up in about 53 minutes from now.
You think so, Sim?
At the time of the OPF burn, Orion will be 328 statute miles above the moon.
They'll upgrade stuff as they go. It really depends. That depends on the
and
date
then
of the
just
mission.
a short time from then, Orion will complete its closest approach to the moon at 81 miles above the lunar surface.
Now, during this time, we will not have signal with Orion because it will be traveling behind the backside of the moon. However, we expect to regain communications once Orion swings back around to the other side and is back on the deep space network.
Oh, they're reorienting the capsule. Look at that. Oh, man, that's cool. Oh, okay. Nice tech.
The outbound powered flyby will send Orion close enough to the lunar surface to leverage the moon's gravitational force and swing the spacecraft once around the moon toward entry into what we call a distant retrograde orbit.
Nice.
Following this, Orion will remain in the distant retrograde orbit for one long elliptical orbit around the moon, lasting about 6 days. Now, this orbit is called distant due to the high altitude from the moon. It's about 40,000 miles past the moon in its orbit, which is actually 30,000 miles farther than the previous record set during Apollo 13. And this will be the farthest in space any spacecraft built for humans will have ever flown.
Oh,
this
so
orbit is also
cool.
called retrograde because Orion will be traveling around the moon opposite the direction the moon travels around the Earth. This DRO provides a highly stable orbit where little fuel is required to stay for an extended trip in deep space in order to put Orion's systems through its paces and to the tests in an environment far from Earth ahead of crewed flights.
It will, Blinga, yeah. See what I mean? They're testing the satellite version of this capsule. So Orion is a beyond low Earth orbit capsule. It's designed to operate out of the magnetic fields, outside of the magnetic fields of Earth for a very long period of time. What they're doing is they're putting all those systems to the test now by sending it into this crazy high stable orbit around the moon. And it'll stay out there for basically a week, just sitting out there baking in the sun for the most part. And they're going to just make sure that all the systems work correctly, and then they'll bring it back. It's going to take a little while, though. Apollo was cool. This isn't. Sure, Nephilim. Yep. Hard disagree. But, that's fine, I guess. Is the lunar regolith on the far side softer or more solid? It's about the same, more or less, 7. You gotta remember that, okay, so this stuff right here, what you're seeing right there is the lunar highlands. So, the lunar has, like, highlands, midlands, and lows. There's high, mids, and lows. The lowlands, so that's the darker gray areas on the surface here. The lowlands are lunar basaltic regions. That's where all the Apollo missions landed. They all landed in the lowlands for the most part. Some of them kind of were on the edge, but all of them are landing in the lowlands. But more or less, the regolith should be about the same. I mean, depending on low or high, it really kind of, I think it's about the same. We got to find the moon arches. We haven't found those yet, Ando. Hey, Milo, what's going on? Oh, Queer, please. Serves fresh coffee, please. Please, I need more, man. I'd like to... It's good to report that the temperature actually has gone up here, so I can finally get my SLS Orion shirt going here. What's the closest it's going to get to the moon? Do you want metric or imperial? Milo. Seriously, metric or imperial? I'll just give both. 128 kilometer paraloon or about 80 miles. Yep. We want it in jello. We are not allowed to use the verboten units here. Okay, I told you this already. Freedom units, please. 80 mile paraloon, Staples. 128 kilometers. Yep. She's gonna get a little bit of a close shave here, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, Vlam, I woke up to a brisk 20 degrees Fahrenheit, or like -5°C. It was great. It wasn't great at all. It sucked a lot. Refills cup to the top. Thank you very much, good sir. You know what? I'm gonna put the coffee pot on. I'll be right back. We need some fresh frickin' pots. Enjoy the view.
Here in Mission Control Houston, things remain relatively calm now. 5 days, 5 hours since Orion's liftoff aboard the Space Launch System from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The next major milestone that we're tracking ahead of today's burn will be a go-no-go poll where Flight Director Rick LeBrode will poll the team here in Mission Control on key systems required for the upcoming burn. On your screen, you're continuing to get a live view of the moon taken from one of the solar array wing or SAW cameras on board the Orion spacecraft. Orion is traveling at 1,248 miles per hour and is only 2,600 miles away from the moon at this time. Again, upon closest approach, Orion will be about 80 miles off of the surface of the moon. Now, we will be in that anticipated and expected loss of signal during that closest approach. However, we do expect to regain signal with Orion just about 2 minutes after the closest approach.
Oh, she
where
moved.
we will regain communications with the vehicle. In time,
Oh, they turned the solar panel. Hold on, I gotta see this. Whoa! Getting vertigo yet?
Here in Mission Control Houston, things remain relatively calm now. 5 days, 5 hours since Orion's liftoff aboard the Space Launch System from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The next major milestone that we're tracking ahead of today's burn will be a go-no-go poll where Flight Director Rick LeBrode will poll the team here in Mission Control on key systems required for the upcoming burn.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so freaking cool, man. It's pretty coggers. Yeah. Pretty coggers. Yeah, the solar panels on Orion, just thought I'd mention it. They can twist, obviously. They can do the twist. And they can also move forward and backwards. They can fold them back or forwards for, like, firing the rocket engines and stuff. Hypothetically, would Orion have enough delta V to safely crash land on the moon? Yeah, of course. Sure. You could put it into an eccentric orbit and crash and litho break the surface. Yeah. Back during the ICPS burn. Forward during the OMS burn, if I recall correctly. Sounds right to me. Its speed is increasing since it's closing the periapsis of the moon, right? Yeah, Hooded, that's called paraloon. Oh. Paraloon, paraselene, paracynthian, depending on what language you want. I mean, pick a poison. Nice dish. Ah, yes, Kerbal landing.
If you're just joining us,
we're trying to not do
live
that.
coverage of today's upcoming outbound-powered flyby burn, which will slingshot us around the backside of the moon. You are continuing to get views
right,
of the moon in real time here on your screen
You hear coffee?
from a solar array wing camera on board Orion.
phone to that.
Today's burn will take place with the Orbital Maneuvering System, or OMS engine. This engine has been used several times throughout Orion's 5-day journey to the moon.
About a half hour, Dino-san, give or take.
This is that large engine located on the bottom of the service module. And the engine can provide 6,000 pounds of thrust.
Alucard, didn't they make a movie about that once?
Today's burn will last 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but the burn can be used for burns lasting up to 16 minutes in length. The OMS engine on board Orion is a repurposed Space Shuttle Orbital Maneuvering System engine that has flown in space before. It flew on 19 Space Shuttle flights, beginning with STS-41G in October of 1984 and ending with STS-112 in October of 2002. Now, the OMS engine is not the only engine on board the Orion spacecraft. There are also 8 auxiliary engines. These are located on the bottom of the service module as well, but in 4 sets of 2. These are used to provide trajectory corrections and as a backup to the main engine, and each engine provides about 100 pounds of thrust.
Oh, yeah. Talk to me in those Imperial units. Yes. Yes.
In total, there are 33 engines aboard Orion, and here on your screen we're getting a quick glimpse of planet Earth.
Welcome to Earth! Yeah, I think that the Earth shot pretty much showed that it is stretched 43.
We do expect to regain those videos and imagery here shortly, but for now you're looking at a telemetry-driven animation of Orion and its location. As you can see here on your screen, speed continuing to pick up, now at 1,369 miles per hour. Over 232,000 miles from home, but only 2,000 miles away from the moon. Again, at closest approach will be just over 80 miles above the lunar surface, continuing to close in on the backside of the moon.
2,200 kilometers an hour, and 3,600 kilometers off the surface of the moon. The engine first flew on Challenger on the last flight of Bob Crippen and Sally Ride. Why would we expend these components? Is beyond me. Yeah, Tech, it is. Yeah, it was about that here this morning. And then my heater decided to just shut off in the garage, so it was a brisk 43 Fahrenheit.
We're 15 minutes away from the planned go, no-go poll, where Flight Director Rick LeBrode will poll the team here in Mission Control ahead of today's upcoming outbound-powered flyby burn.
Yep, floating, exactly. Latin or Greek, pick one. You can pick whatever you want. Both of those are good. Yeah, I don't know why it did it, though, Drummer. We'll talk about that later. Let's capsule. Fahrenheit. Somebody that uses metric expressing disdain for Fahrenheit? Huh. That never happens. I just burnt my tongue. What exactly is this mission for? Testing the long duration capabilities of the Orion capsule, Kuyart. Use Kelvin. Proper big boy temperature. Yep, found the physicist. Currently, external temperature on the capsule is a brisk absolute 0. Yep, that's it's actually not pretty cold. It's nothing. Yeah, it's not temperature. It's nothing. You can't have temperature.
And you're looking at a live view inside Mission Control Houston. We're in the White Flight Control Room today. There in the center of your screen, who just sat down, is Flight Director Rick LeBrode, who is leading the team here in Mission Control this morning. Sitting next to him is another Flight Director, Zeb Scoville. We'll have the opportunity to speak with Zeb here in just a few minutes about the upcoming burn.
Yes, Zebulon. That's his name. He's cool. Yeah. Absolutely floating. Yep. What's this capsule's temperature in Scoville? I don't know. You'd have to ask Zeb. There's nobody on board, JW, so they don't need any snacks. It's true. It varies, Ape, to be honest with you, but yeah, wow. Can you guys just like get us the live view of Earth back again, please? Oh, in the control room. Oh, there is plenty of snacks. Yeah, there was a lot of snacks behind the guys in the control room. I should have brought snacks with me. Damn. There's no Kerbal on board. Snoopy is on board. Yep. All good, STX. Yeah, noise. Yeah, pretty much. It's noise. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So NASA still uses miles, huh? No. U.S. taxpayers paid for this mission for the most part, so they put it in units that most Americans can understand. NASA engineers in metric. Did you make this capsule in KSP? No.
Orion is now 2,000 miles away from the moon, continuing to close in on its destination for this particular burn, the backside of the moon. The outbound powered flyby is the goal of today's operation. This outbound powered flyby will send Orion close enough to the lunar surface to leverage the moon's gravitational force and swing the spacecraft once around the moon toward entry into distant retrograde orbit.
Hey, eyes up.
Following this, Orion will remain in the distant retrograde orbit for one long elliptical orbit around the moon, which will last about 6 days.
Yes, plus. Very good, very good. Hey, eyes up. Marcus Jones.
Following this, Orion will perform a similar maneuver called the return-powered flyby, which will put it on the trajectory to return back to Earth ahead of a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean on December 11th.
Repeat that. Marcus Jones. Yeah, Marcus Jones.
Now, the first time a NASA vehicle flew behind the backside of the moon with crew on board was first done during Apollo 8. And here you are looking at a live view of the Orion spacecraft from the solar array wing with the moon in
It's a picture of me!
The Earth in the distant frame of the screen and the moon up close. Again, we are now less than 2,000 miles away from the moon.
That is...
But over 200,000 miles away from planet Earth.
I can see my house from here!
Orion started its journey 5 days ago from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where it launched aboard the Space Launch System. Orion has been traveling to the moon ever since, performing checkouts of its systems, as this is an uncrewed test flight. It's critical that NASA tests out the hardware and systems aboard Orion ahead of flying a crew on board Artemis 2.
Dude, what a shot. This is why I woke up this morning. Oh my gosh. I dream of stuff like this, man. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm nerding out. Guys, I'm nerding out. Please help. Please send help. I'm going to lose my cool. I need to be slapped. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. I'm back. I'm good. I'm all right. I'm all right. Oh, that's so freaking cool. I'm not alright, damn it! Stupid feelings. Nice, Thomas. Oh my goodness. Dude, you gotta be kidding me. Wait, can I? Give me 1 second. Can we? Just, can I just? Boop. I just caused an earthquake, I think. Ow! Why? Because the ground isn't rumbling, is it? Tsunami! I know, Wallboy. I'm sorry. My bad. My bad, dude. For what it's worth, I'm in with you as well. Australia's detached and now free floating. Dude. Earth is gonna set behind the moon here. I'm guessing things did well. I just got to your phone again. They haven't done the burn yet, Noswolf. It should be happening in about 30 minutes, but also... See that place right there? That blue thing that looks like a marble? Yeah, I'm quite fond of that place. Oh, sorry, Blinga. That's my bad. Did Orion flip around or did they switch the cameras? They turned the solar panels and they reoriented the craft for the powered flyby maneuver, Haji. Yeah. There is a local high-def recording, Talon. Yep. That place sucks. You know something? You suck. Yeah, floating. It's kind of surreal, isn't it? I've been there. Dude, me too. That place is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Got me. Wait. I can't believe this. I mean, I can. It's right in front of me. But also, we should have a loss of signal on the craft relatively soon here. Twitching, why are you speaking Australian to us? Can somebody translate what he's saying? He's speaking Australian to us. Marcus Jones, Isaac. Marcus Jones, bro. Am I right? Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones, son. What, dude, it's freaking swift. I couldn't believe it. I was watching it with a bunch of people, and I'm just like, did that just happen? All right, that just happened. Australian here, translating. Australia has declared independence from Earth. Thanks, mate. I don't know, Creeper. I'm gonna have to lodge a complaint with the complaint department. But dude, seriously, can we just... I'm just gonna pop out before Earth goes out of frame here. Look at that. Can you believe that? Yeah, plus, it was money. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that. Yeah, Zaza for sure. Oh, don't worry about it, physicist. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. Nothing. Unbelievable. Why is Earth so small? You're 400,000 kilometers away. What do you want? 250,000 miles. It's a long way.
Good morning
Sandra.
and welcome to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. I'm NASA's Sandra Jones and we're bringing you live coverage from Mission Control Houston of the upcoming outbound powered flyby in which Orion will fly behind the moon and perform a burn utilizing the Orbital Maneuvering System engine, which was checked out on Tuesday following launch of Orion atop the Space Launch System. The engine has been performing well and has completed a series of additional expected trajectory correction burns, and all spacecraft systems are performing well now over 5 days into the flight of Artemis 1. Today we're in the White Flight Control Room where Flight Director Rick LeBrode is leading the team on console for today's flyby and burn. Just moments ago, Flight Director Rick LeBrode pulled the team here in Mission Control, and we are go for the OPF burn. We do expect to lose signal of Orion as it travels behind the backside of the moon, as the moon will be blocking the direct sight to the deep space network. We're tracking that loss of signal to begin just about 10 minutes from now at 6:25 a.m. Central and will last just over 34 minutes. While in the loss of signal, the outbound powered flyby will take place with the Orbital Maneuvering System engine at 6:44 a.m. Central. The outbound powered flyby will send Orion close enough to the lunar surface to leverage the moon's gravitational force and swing the spacecraft once around the moon toward entry into distant retrograde orbit. Following this, Orion will remain in the distant retrograde orbit for one long elliptical orbit around the moon, lasting about 6 days.
Ah, there we go. There's the graphic. So we're at outbound powered flyby.
At this time,
right,
Orion is only 1,600 miles away from the moon. And you see this view on your screen as Orion continues to approach the backside of the moon, now traveling at over 1,776 miles per hour.
2,500 kilometers off the surface.
And on the lower middle of your screen, you do see that's us, that's home. 232,000 miles away from Earth. Orion launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida 5 days ago.
1,000 kilometers away.
And we are now 25 minutes away from the outbound powered flyby maneuver.
What would Carl Sagan say? Wow. That's pretty neat. Carl Sagan, probably. See that there? You can tell that's a moon because of the way
Today's
it is.
burn will
turning the
occur
solar panels
with
again.
The Orbital Maneuvering System,
view.
or OMS engine, which has been used several times already in Orion's flight.
It's sweet, dude.
The OMS engine is located on the bottom of the service module and is the largest engine aboard Orion. It can provide 6,000 pounds of thrust and is equipped to help steer the spacecraft and can be used in some abort cases if necessary to safely return Orion to Earth. Now, today's burn will last for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but the OMS engine can fire for up to 16 minutes. The OMS engine is a repurposed Space Shuttle Orbital Maneuvering System engine that has flown in space several times before, 19 times in fact, beginning on Space Shuttle Flight STS-41G in October of 1984 and ending with STS-112 in October 2002.
Oh, they're turning the solar panels again. Ah, there you go, Kate.
Now, just about 5 minutes from now, we do expect to lose signal from Orion as it travels behind the moon. That loss of signal will last for 34 minutes. However, once Orion emerges from the backside of the moon and regains communications on the deep space network, we do expect to regain communications with the vehicle.
Dr. Z's last tweet was 15 hours ago.
The burn will occur at 6:44 a.m. Central while we are in that loss of signal. And we'll also have the closest approach at that time period when we are in the loss of signal as well. That closest approach at 6:57 a.m. Central when Orion will be just 81 miles above the lunar surface.
That's right, Haji. Yep, it's line of sight. Yep. Now, they might be able to get the signal to go a little bit. You might be able to retain a little bit of signal, or like even after it's not in direct line of sight. But for the most part, it's going to go out. That's only for like a little teeny weeny bit. That's no moon. I mean, it's too big to be a space station, Jib. Pretty sure it's a moon. Pretty sure. I wonder if Jim Lovell is watching.
Again, if you're just joining us, you are looking at a view from the Solar Array Wing or SAW camera on board the Orion spacecraft, which is 5 days into its mission, just 1,400 miles away from the moon. We'll continue to see the moon grow larger in the frame here in the next couple of minutes before we do lose signal from Orion as it flies behind the moon.
Artemis
now you are
is the
seeing the
program,
Earth, you are seeing home,
Orion
you
is
are
the
seeing
spacecraft.
yourself in that image right there, as Orion is 232,000 miles away from planet Earth.
NASA has better camera work than F1 and they are 400,000 kilometers away. Facts. I don't know if people are ready for those facts, Jay. Does this Orion have a name? It's just the Orion capsule, Hellbore. I don't think it has a designated name. Fly me to the moon and let me play amongst the stars. We're not going to Jupiter and Mars yet, okay? Soon, though.
Now less than 4 minutes away from our expected loss of signal as Orion travels behind the moon. While behind the moon, Orion will perform the outbound powered flyby, which the team here in Mission Control is ready for. Flight Director Rick LeBrode pulled the team. Everyone is pulling go. Everything still on track for the outbound powered flyby burn, now 20 minutes away. This outbound powered flyby will send Orion close enough to the lunar surface to leverage the moon's gravitational force and swing the spacecraft once around the moon toward entry into distant retrograde orbit. Following this, Orion will remain in the distant retrograde orbit for one long elliptical around the moon, which will last about 6 days. Now, this is different than what was done during the Apollo program when the spacecraft orbited much closer to the moon.
That's correct.
Now, this orbit is called distant due to the high altitude from the moon. It's about 40,000 miles past the moon in its orbit. This is actually 30,000 miles farther than the previous record set during Apollo 13 and will be the farthest in space any spacecraft built for humans will have ever flown. This orbit is called retrograde because Orion will travel around the moon opposite the direction the moon travels around Earth. Distant retrograde orbit provides a highly stable orbit where little fuel is required to stay for an extended trip in deep space and allows the opportunity to put Orion's systems to the test in an environment far from Earth. We are now less than 2 minutes away from our anticipated loss of signal as Orion travels behind the moon.
Unfreaking believable, dude. That's so cool. Oh, space flight's so freaking cool, dude. We should do this more. We should do more of this. This is pretty sweet. We should do more. We should do more of this. Yeah, we should do more of this. Give it time for it. It'll get cheaper if we keep doing it.
As we continue to get live views here for the next minute or so, we will potentially see the Earth start to go just behind the moon as Orion travels behind the moon. We will not have Earth views, of course, because the moon will be blocking the Orion spacecraft. However, we do anticipate an acquisition of signal at 6:59 a.m. Central. It's about a 34-minute loss of signal, at which point we hope to regain communications with the spacecraft.
Holy shnikes. That's ridiculous, man. That is ridiculous. Look at Earth go behind the moon. Oh, I don't mean to, like, oversell it, but... yeah, she's going fast, man. Okay.
5 seconds away from our anticipated loss of signal.
She's out. Here we go.
And we do have loss of signal. Again, this is a 34 minute 4 second loss of signal.
All right, she's going to be out here for a little bit.
Orion is now behind the moon, and we are in a period of anticipated loss of signal.
You see that shot, guys? That's only the beginning.
This is because the moon is blocking the signal to the Deep Space Network. We are looking ahead to the outbound powered flyby burn, which will take place with the orbital maneuvering system in less than 17 minutes from now at 6:44 a.m. Central.
So the capsule is recording local footage, Brain Freeze, right now. So when the capsule gets back in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to get some real crisp shots. NASA said in a press conference that they're recording locally in 4K. Oh, those are going to be some real nice pictures, man. Those are going to be some really nice pictures. They said that. Yeah, so those are going to be some really sweet pictures, man. 4K, but at what bit rate? I'm not sure. Those I really hope you know what? I am looking forward to that. I really hope we get to see that. I will scrub through the whole thing, Sky Captain. I will, as much footage as they can put out, I will look for it, like all of it. What are they storing that on? A hard drive?
If you're just joining us, Orion continues to fly behind the moon. We are now 31 minutes away from our anticipated acquisition of signal. And just 15 minutes away from today's outbound powered flyby.
Yep. It's like that 70K, not 70K, nice. That would be sweet. It's like that 70mm film that was recovered from the Apollo program. Just absolutely unbelievable. Okay, so 44 past the hour, guys. Orion will do its outbound powered flyby, or OPF maneuver. This is going to position the capsule for precise distant retrograde insertion. Basically, they're just adjusting the orbit. They're shifting it a little bit around the moon to get good, basically put them on the right flight path to get to the orbit that they're trying to get to. That's the plain English way of saying it. What they're doing is, if I'm looking at this right, they're doing a radial in-burn to adjust argument of perigee to give proper apocynthion for distant retrograde insertion. Now, yeah, don't get me wrong. If that meant, if those were some words, right? Those were words. Those make sense. Yeah, they're just shifting the orbit just a little bit so they can go to the right spot. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Jester. We are. It's freaking cool, man.
So as we continue to make our way behind the moon, we do have that anticipated loss of signal that we've been discussing. But right now, I do have a very special guest joining me. We have NASA Flight Director Zeb Scoville, who is going to chat with us a little bit about this moment, what it means to him,
We're
and
not
what
hosting
we can
an
look forward to
intergalactic
upcoming.
kegger
So, Zeb,
down
I can't
here.
imagine how special this moment must feel. Tell me a little bit about what this is like.
This is one of those days that you've been thinking about and dreaming about for a long, long time. I remember when I was a kid,
it's just to piss you off,
dreaming about being an astronaut and going to work at NASA. And when I got here, we were flying shuttle and we were building a space station and flying it. And that is an incredible vehicle, but on the horizon was always how humanity was going to get back to the moon. And this morning, we just saw the Earth set behind the moon as we take the next human-rated vehicle
sweet,
around the
It's
moon,
freaking sweet.
preparing to bring humans back there within a few years. This is a game changer.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. And
Zeb's
so we
cool.
are behind
That
the
guy's
moon,
cool.
as you
He's
said,
flight
right
director
now.
for
And this
NASA.
is important because we have a burn upcoming,
Couple
the
seconds,
OPF
Stephanie.
burn. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that burn is, the purpose of it, and why it's important?
Yeah, the outbound powered flyby is the name of the burn, and what this is going to do is it's going to adjust the trajectory of Orion. So as we've been flying towards it from Earth, we're going to loop around behind it, use the gravity to sort of give us a boost, and then this burn will put us into a trajectory that brings us out to what's called a distant retrograde orbit. So this is about a 50,000-mile orbit above the surface of the moon, where we can get set up in a stable orbit. We're actually going to spend several days in that orbit before we come back around the moon once again and do another burn on the return end to bring us back towards Earth.
Great. Well, we're really looking forward to that burn. It's now just about 12 minutes away.
No, I see
Everything's
what
still
Thomas said in the chat.
go for
He's
that
right.
burn, which is great news. Now, I think the question on everyone's mind is the next time we do this, we're going to have crew on board. So how is that going to be different, or is it going to be different?
Yeah, I mean, the crew really puts human in the human space flight, right? And that's the whole reason why we're doing this, is to get humanity back on the surface of the moon. There's just an incredible amount that we have to learn. This is not like Apollo. This is not a repeat of Apollo. What we're going to do and the architectures we're going to be setting up, the locations we're going to go to, are going to really unlock a lot of the capabilities of the moon, the research on the moon, ability to go explore beyond the moon and the solar system onto Mars. There's areas of the South Pole that will have volatile resources, locked ice from 4.6 billion years ago. Last time I checked, the recipe for ice was hydrogen and oxygen, which, by the way, is also rocket fuel, and you can breathe it and you can drink it, and it really enables sort of a long-term architecture on the moon. And so this is the first step. When we come back with crew on Artemis 2, they're going to be doing a real crew test rundown of the vehicle, testing all the life support systems and making sure they function with the human in the loop elements of it. And so that mission will bring it and do a short flyby of the moon before it comes back, and then Artemis 3 will get us onto the surface.
And we are really looking forward to that. But first, today's OPF burn. So I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with me about this. I know you're very busy, so I'll let you get back to your console position. But really, thank you so much, Zeb. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
If it's not able to communicate from Earth, how's it getting telemetry for the animation? It's telemetry interpolation. It's just basically this is kind of predicting where it's going to be. It's not too hard for a computer to be able to predict an orbit. Orbits are pretty uniform. They do stay on schedule. The thing that gets hard to predict are perturbing forces. That's where like trajectory optimization gets kind of wonky. But if you if you look, like, they can predict relatively where it's going, and that's why it's the industry term for this is called relative navigation. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not getting any signal from the spacecraft. There's a big hunk of rock in the way, and metal, and basaltic metal. But they can the computers can kind of predict where it's going, because the orbit stays on schedule. Now, it will perturb in one way or another,
We're now less
but
than
it should
10
be,
minutes away
that's
from
more or
today's
less where
outbound
it's going.
powered flyby
Should stay on
burn.
schedule.
As you see in this graphic on your screen that is driven by real-time telemetry, we are about 830 miles away from the moon.
So
Now, we do not have signal with Orion right now because the moon is blocking its ability
Not
to
on this
communicate
part,
with the
honey.
Deep Space Network. However, we do anticipate regaining the communication with Orion in about 25 minutes from now.
okay, I can talk to you about communications here in a second, fellas. Now, I get...
But before then will be the moment we've all been waiting for, the OPF burn, which is slated to occur at 6:44 a.m. Central, just 8 minutes from now.
I am waiting my turn, Stanley. So, a lot of people are asking me, well, why don't they have communications? Why don't they have communications? Well, if you listen to what Zeb Scoville said just a second ago, he's talking about how it's differentiating from Orion, okay? Or not Orion, it's differentiating from Apollo, excuse me. the way NASA is trying to set up the Artemis program is that they're going to make something called the Lunar Gateway. And this is basically like a pit stop on the way to the moon. And the Lunar Gateway is going to be in a type of orbit that never loses sight of Earth. Now, I know what people are going to say. Wait, how are you going to do that? There is a way to have the moon's non-uniform gravitational pull perturb your orbit to basically make it so you're always within line of sight of Earth. That's called a rectilinear halo orbit. Now, why is this important to communications? Okay, so the type of orbit that Orion's going into is basically where this red line is. Okay, actually, Orion's is probably over here somewhere. It's probably more towards the green right here. So that's a distant retrograde orbit. This is just to test the capsule out. When we get to more operational missions, Orion and the Gateway and the lander and everything that you need to really explore the moon is going to be in an orbit called a rectilinear halo orbit. Now, I can sit here and I can explain the orbital mechanics of it if you want. I'll be very brief. It is a eccentric polar orbit.
We're now 23 minutes away from our anticipated acquisition of signal with Orion. Again, the vehicle continues to fly behind the moon. It is now 764 miles above the lunar surface, but at the time of closest approach will be 81 miles above the surface. Now, we do have the outbound powered flyby burn coming up in about 6 minutes and 40 seconds from now.
Close, dude.
But this maneuver was first done during Apollo 8 on Christmas Eve 54 years ago. Apollo 8 was the first crewed spacecraft to leave low Earth orbit and the first human spaceflight to reach the moon. The crew of Frank Borman, James Lovell, and Bill Anders orbited the moon 10 times without landing before splashing down on December 27, 1968. While Apollo 8 completed 10 orbits around the moon, about 60 miles above the surface, once Orion emerges from the far side of the moon, it will slingshot out to distant retrograde orbit about 30,000 miles away from the Earth. This orbit is critical for key tests and to evaluate how Orion performs in deep space, and this will be the furthest any human-rated spacecraft will have ever traveled away from Earth. But for now, let's take a quick look back on that historic Apollo 8 mission now.
Ooh. Hang on, I'll talk to you about a rectilinear orbit.
Apollo 8 originally was an Earth orbital mission exercising a lunar module. But the lunar module was way behind. The people in NASA came up with the idea of moving Apollo 8 to a lunar orbital mission.
Why don't we send the command service module of Apollo 8 to orbit the moon, and we can learn a lot about the communication system, the navigation system, how the moon's gravity would affect the orbiting spacecraft, look for suitable landing spots. Well, I got into the big Saturn V. This would be the first time that man had actually launched on a Saturn V. So I thought to myself, after this 4 months of heavy training, I said, you know, I'm actually going to go to the moon. We had orbited the Earth, first of all, to check our spacecraft out. Then, when everything was fine and the spacecraft looked fine to go to the moon, we lit the third stage for a second time.
Trajectory and guidance are go, over.
We could actually coast all the way to the moon.
And after a while, you could look back and see the Earth getting smaller and smaller. People on Earth tend to call the far side of the moon the dark side, but that's a misnomer. On our flight, the moon was between the Earth and the sun, and the far side was lit by the sun.
We saw the far side. You know, we're like three school kids looking into a candy store window, I guess, just staring at the unnamed craters as they slowly passed us by.
We were busy shooting pictures of the lunar surface for lunar landing sites for upcoming lunar landings. And then suddenly I looked out the window and here was this gorgeous orb coming up, and I thought, holy moly.
And there over the lunar landscape was the Earth. The Earth was beautiful. It was the only thing in the whole universe that had any color.
I had fought to have a long lens and color film. I didn't have a light meter, just banged off a dozen or so pictures, changing the f-stop each click.
I put my thumb up to the window of the spacecraft.
So good.
And I could completely hide the Earth behind my thumb. The Earth is a mere speck in the Milky Way galaxy.
And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good Earth.
If you're just joining us,
that's so
Orion is
good,
currently behind the moon, and we are in a period of anticipated loss of signal as the moon blocks the signal of the Deep Space Network. We are looking ahead to the outbound powered flyby burn, which will take place with the orbital maneuvering system about 2 minutes from now at 6:44 a.m. Central. At this time, Orion is about 670 miles above the lunar surface.
So,
during its time of closest approach, Orion will be about 81 miles above the surface of the moon.
We need faster than light communication. Yeah, I mean, faster than light communication isn't going to fix this problem because there's this thing about putting things in front of a light source. It gets darker. Just saying. Anyway, going back over to the rectilinear halo orbit. The type of orbit that they're going to put Orion Gateway lander in, this one really drives it home over here. This type of orbit never loses line of sight of Earth. NASA's found a way to have a resonant orbit that always stays with the coplanar normal facing towards Earth.
We're now 1 minute and 45
so you don't need to worry
seconds
about
away
a relay
from today's
network.
outbound powered
Smart.
flyby burn. This burn
Looks
will
like
last
that.
for 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
See? So this is why for this
burn
mission
will occur with Orion's orbital maneuvering system, or OMS engine, which was successfully checked out on Tuesday following the liftoff of Orion aboard the Space Launch System from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The OMS engine performing spectacularly so far.
Can they just orbit the poles and do the same thing?
While this is the
polar
first
orbit,
flight for the OMS engine as a part of the Artemis program, it actually flew on 19 space shuttle flights, beginning with STS-41G in October 1984 and ending with STS-112 in October 2002.
Yeah, right on.
We're now just 40 seconds away from the OMS engine getting to flex its firing capabilities on the backside of the moon.
All right, so warning. So yeah, that's why they're not
Less
bothering.
than 30 seconds until today's burn.
That's why they're not bothering with putting a relay network out there, because the station is going to be the relay when it gets out there. So for these prototype missions, they're going to have communication.
15 seconds until the burn begins.
They're going to have communication blackout. But for these first missions, but later down the road you won't have it. How is it still accelerating? Gravity? It's going to be accelerating until it gets to the closest point of the moon, Haji, and then it'll start decelerating. Excited for the World Cup?
And we anticipate the outbound powered flyby burn to have begun.
Okay.
Again, because we are behind the backside of the moon, we do not have communications with the Orion spacecraft just yet, but we do anticipate acquiring that signal in 15 minutes and 50 seconds from now. At that time, we should be able to evaluate performance of the OPF burn and have some more information about how the burn went. 30 seconds into the burn, 2 minutes remaining in today's outbound powered flyby burn.
Yeah, Shadow, it's going to be sweet. So the outbound powered flyby burn is basically shifting the orbit a little bit so they can get a good trajectory to get into the distant retrograde orbit that they keep talking about. For the nerd,
1 minute into the outbound powered flyby burn.
For the nerds here, I'm pretty sure it's a radial in burn raising argument of perigee. Or moving the argument of perigee, you don't raise it. It's moving the argument of perigee to change the trajectory for DRO insertion.
This outbound powered flyby will send Orion close enough to the lunar surface to leverage the moon's gravitational force and swing the spacecraft once around the moon toward entry into that distant retrograde orbit. Orion will remain in the distant retrograde orbit for one long elliptical orbit around the moon, lasting about 6 days. This orbit is called distant due to the high altitude from the moon. It's about 40,000 miles past the moon in its orbit, which is actually 30,000 miles farther than the previous record set during Apollo 13, and will be the farthest in space any spacecraft built for humans will have ever flown.
Relax. I have your
30 seconds remaining in today's burn.
I have your metric units here.
60... Now, once in this distant retrograde orbit, the orbit is called retrograde because Orion will travel around the moon opposite the direction the moon travels around Earth. Distant retrograde orbit provides a highly stable orbit where little fuel is required to stay for an extended trip in deep space in order to put Orion's systems to the test in an environment far from Earth. And the outbound powered flyby burn should be complete.
$64,000-kilometer Apolloon. I'm afraid to start any explanations.
And we are less than 14 minutes away from our anticipated acquisition of our signal with Orion.
That's my inner voice. Yeah, that's...
The next milestone we'll look ahead towards in our coverage today is when Orion will complete its closest approach to the lunar surface. In 10 minutes from now, Orion will be flying 81 miles above the lunar surface. That closest approach occurring at 6:57 a.m. Central, 7:57 a.m. Eastern.
128-kilometer.
Then just 2 minutes from
miles.
the time of closest approach, we do anticipate our acquisition of signal.
It's true, Rampant. That's exactly what's going on. It's a conspiracy, man. Oh, now you're going to let me talk. Oh, that's great. That's great. This is how I learned to talk fast. Yeah, but see, I can't talk fast, because if I sit here and talk fast, then nobody's going to understand what the heck I'm saying.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Jado? Okay. They did do a radial... I'm pretty sure it's a radial in-burn wheat. Radial in-burn for the outbound powered flyby, I think. I'd have... If that orientation of the spacecraft is correct, it's radial in.
If you're just joining us, the Orion spacecraft is currently flying behind the moon. We are in a period of loss of signal due to the fact that the moon is blocking Orion's ability to communicate with the Deep Space Network. But we do anticipate gaining signal on the Deep Space Network in 11 minutes and 30 seconds from now.
Okay, so it's going to...
At 6:44 a.m. Central Time, Orion's orbital maneuvering system engine completed a 2-minute and 30-second burn. This burn is called the outbound powered flyby burn. Now again, because we are behind the moon, we will not be able to have data from the Orion spacecraft to evaluate how the burn performance was, but we do expect to learn a little bit more about that once we come back behind the moon.
Why does NASA not have a relay satellite around the moon to have signal? Because they don't need one for where the Artemis missions are going, because Gateway will be the relay satellite. Rectilinear halo orbit affords you a constant line of sight to Earth because of lunar orbital perturbations. So, yeah, you don't need that. Gateway will be your relay satellite. They'll be able to get at all points of the moon and pretty much communication all the time. Yep. You could always turn her down. Nah. I want to make sure. I actually am not. I don't want to mute Sandra because I want to be sure that I'm keeping up with the mission. Everything she's saying, I am paying attention to. You wanted PAOs to commentate on A1. Wish granted. You know what?
That's
graphic you see right. I can't complain.
That is, of course, the Orion spacecraft. And the large engine that you see in the middle of the spacecraft there is the orbital maneuvering system. That was
exactly
the engine
what they
that
should be doing,
just performed the burn. We anticipate that burn to have lasted 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The OMS engine, or Orbital Maneuvering System engine, provides 6,000 pounds of thrust and can steer the spacecraft, and can be used in some abort cases to safely return Orion to Earth. And in this animation, you're also seeing some of the auxiliary engines on board Orion.
We had external
These are
shots.
also located on the bottom of the service module in 4 sets of 2.
Dude. All right.
Each of these engines provides about 100 pounds of thrust.
Dude, okay, guys, I'm going to rewind here real quick, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Before Orion went around onto the far side of the moon, we had this. I don't need to say anything. Pretty cool, huh? That's the moon. That's Earth. That's Orion. That was like probably about 40, 50 minutes ago. And then if we fast forward, check that out. She went around the moon and then we lost communication. But that was on purpose. We should be getting communication back here momentarily. And when I say momentarily, give it about another 20 minutes. It'll pop out from the far side of the moon, and that's when they'll get a reacquisition of signal, and hopefully we get another good shot of the Earth coming up.
From Orion's closest approach to the lunar surface.
I'm just gonna do a quick time zoom here to make sure that we're sped up. Once again, this is what's called telemetry interpolation. It's just kind of a representation of what the capsule should be doing. This is not necessarily right from Orion. There's a big moon in the way. Once again, this will not be a problem on future missions when Gateway is here. You will have acquisition of signal through the Gateway. You'll be able to get communications on the far side. That's just for this mission. The infrastructure isn't set up there. So we will be popping out from the far side of the moon here momentarily. And when we do, you'll get an updated version. You'll get an update of the telemetry here. They didn't go down to 80 miles though, did they? Yes, they did. Yeah, it's on the far side of the moon. 128 kilometers. They've passed it already. Actually, no, they're still accelerating. But see, that's once again, this is telemetry interpolated data. We should have signal acquisition at about 6:45. I'll be able to tell you, hypersonic, when Paracynthian was, when Paraloon was, the lowest point or the closest point to the moon. Once we get updated data, that shouldn't be accelerating. If it was accelerating, that means we're not at that point yet. But maybe I'm wrong. But then again, if it was a radial in burn. If it was radial in, then it may have shifted the Paraloon to point where we have acquisition of signal. We might get a live view of it if this data is correct from what I can tell. So, bear with me here. When does the Gateway come online? Should be around 2024 virtual. Falcon Heavy is launching the first components for Gateway, the power and propulsion element, and the habitation and logistics outpost, or HALO module. Pretty good name. Master Chief would approve. Those are scheduled. They're being built right now. It's scheduled for 2024. And once Gateway is up out there, dudes, then you don't have to worry about signal blackout anymore. The way the Gateway is basically your communication relay back to Earth. The type of orbit that it's in always has line of sight to Earth. So it's a really, really, really good communication system.
Orbit where little fuel is required to stay for an extended trip in deep space in order to put Orion's systems to the test in an environment far from Earth.
Accelerating but going
Now this orbit is different than the orbit done during the Apollo program, in which the spacecraft and its crew orbited much closer to the lunar surface in a more circular fashion.
Is the velocity relative to the moon or Earth?
Distant retrograde orbit is important because it helps us to learn about how a spacecraft functions in a deep space environment.
Okay, City.
As part of the Artemis program, the Gateway program is building a small human-tended space station which will orbit the moon and provide extensive capabilities to support NASA's Artemis campaign. Gateway's capabilities for supporting sustained exploration and research in deep space include docking ports for a variety of visiting spacecraft, space for crew to live and work, and onboard science investigations to study heliophysics, human health, and life sciences, among other areas.
Okay, we should be inside of 5 minutes to
We
signal acquisition.
are expecting the acquisition of signal to occur in 4 minutes from now.
See? I beat Sandra to it. Your boy's fast as frick, boy! That and 2 cups of coffee will do that. That's one big crater. Oh yeah. We should go there. We will go there. Especially 2 furred cups of coffee. Yeah, that cup is like, that's a big mug. Hypersonic, it's like 3 cups of coffee. Yeah, it's where Wallace and Gromit took all the cheese from.
At this time, we do expect Orion to be completing its closest approach to the lunar surface. Orion should be just about 81 miles above the surface of our closest celestial neighbor.
Okay. Yeah, see, that burn did shift Paraloon a little bit, Hypersonic. It definitely shifted it. So, this graphic and these numbers aren't exactly right. I'm telling you that right now, because this is not 80 miles above the moon.
At this time of closest approach, Orion flying at a lunar latitude of 6.5 degrees and a lunar longitude of 120 degrees. Orion is fairly close to the equator at this time.
You should dome a crater purely for the look. I mean, you'll get no argument from me, Rasak. Well, Gateway's orbit basically be a tidally locked orbit. So the normal axis, the coplanar normal axis of Gateway's burn is perpendicular.
Now just 2 minutes away from our anticipated acquisition
to
of
the
signal.
Earth reference frame, if that makes any sense. Basically, yes. The equator of the moon or the moon? Brain freeze. I don't know why they'd be using Earth latitude and longitude to plot, to figure out where a spacecraft is on the moon. That doesn't really make sense. Okay, 2 minutes until signal acquisition. Sorry about what, man? No problem.
1 minute and 30 seconds until the anticipated acquisition of signal.
The moon do be like that, Dish.
Again, Orion is currently flying behind the backside of the moon, having completed its closest approach at 6:57 a.m. Central, just 81 miles above the lunar surface.
Hooded, see that video right there? The video that I linked in chat. China's proposing a Zeus-like lander. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Not just a graphic of it on a PowerPoint. Look at the latter half of that video, Hooded. Yeah, Gateway is using an eccentric polar orbit with lunar precession to stay in line of sight of Earth all the time. It's actually pretty smart. Time to wake up. And yeah, when in future Artemis missions, you won't have this problem. Gateway will be able to communicate with Earth because it has an apolloon
Less than 30 minutes,
way
30
above
seconds
the
rather,
South Pole.
until our anticipated acquisition of
It
signal.
is my alarm, Joseph. Yep. Rebs, tier 2, 24 months. Thanks, buddy.
The mood certainly a bit
All right, here we go.
suspenseful here in mission control as we await Orion to emerge from the backside of the moon.
Give it a second. Dish 54 is receiving.
We're standing by for acquisition of signal.
Must be a little bit of a delay on the stream. NASA streams are usually 30 seconds delayed. So we should see a signal pop in here in a second. You can tell because the monitors right there, those monitors on the wall were showing Orion's last transmitted picture before it went around the moon. So watch those monitors to update like that. Come on, baby. Come on. Hubba bubba.
And we do have confirmation
suck.
of an acquisition of signal on the Deep Space Network in Goldstone.
Well, that's pretty neat. I can tell it's an Earth because of the way it is. That's pretty neat.
This view on your screen of planet Earth taken from Orion's Solar Array Wing Camera, or SAW camera.
Oh, anticlimactic? What are you talking about,
Standing
man?
on the
crazy?
shoulders of the giants of the Apollo generation, Orion now carries forward the torch of the Artemis generation as it emerges from behind the moon, an Earthrise of our pale blue dot and its 8 billion human inhabitants now coming into view.
Tracking site updated 72 miles above the surface. Ooh. If they could just turn this so we could see the moon, that'd be great. Every human that's ever existed, ever, is in that shot. Ever.
With the successful acquisition of signal from the Orion spacecraft, the team here in Mission Control, Houston, will evaluate the spacecraft systems to evaluate performance of the outbound powered flyby burn, which occurred 18 minutes and 50 seconds ago.
Keep in mind, guys, there's no dark side of the moon. The sun does shine on the far side of the moon. And the sun was out on the far side of the moon. So the close side of the moon is dark right now. That's why you don't have a full moon right now. Just saying. Oh, come on, please give me that camera back. Please, I need that camera back. Please. NASA, please. Great album, though. No doubt, yeah. That's what I meant. I thought they're currently in the shadow of the moon. Negative. Why couldn't we see any stars in the background on that Earth shot? Well, you can't see any stars, Fritz, but you can see the light from one star. There's one star that just happens to be a little bit closer than all the other ones, and it kind of drowns the light out, dude. You need a long exposure to see it. It's kind of why, like, if you have a telescope down here on the surface, trying to look for stars during the day doesn't really make a lot of sense because you're only going to see the light from one star that's just absurdly close comparatively to all the other ones. Seriously, the sun's light is so ridiculous up there. It'll just you can't see it on the camera lens. Good question though. Good question. Gotcha. I mean, that's not ignorant, dude. It's all good. Yeah, you can see the star. It's just the light from one star that just happens to be a lot closer than all the other stars. You know what I'm saying? It's that thing that comes up in the morning. If you stare at it for too long, your eyes start to hurt. I know there's a dark side of the moon. Pink Floyd told you. Who is this Floyd guy, and why does he keep talking about stuff he doesn't understand? I'm just kidding. I know who Pink Floyd is. Personally, I'm more of a fan of The Wall. Just saying. I mean, I like Roger Waters.
And you're looking at this view on your screen from the Orion spacecraft as it looks back at planet Earth, having launched just 5 days ago. Orion is now over 230,000 miles away from Earth.
And it's gone. And it's gone.
Orion emerged from the backside of the moon just minutes ago after completing the outbound powered flyby burn. That burn occurring 21 minutes ago.
I think they're not showing the moon, Rasak, because it's dark. The close side of the moon is darker right now.
While behind the moon, Orion completed its closest approach to the moon at a distance of 80 miles above the surface.
I don't know what you're talking about, W. There's no secret moon base. I don't know what that means. Nice, Primo. Thanks for getting up early to show this. Gonna lurk and work. Have a great day. Yep. What, Pythels? That's the number that I like. Oh, an interior shot. There we go. Snoopy.
And you're looking at a live view inside the Orion spacecraft.
Snoopy.
This is, of course, an uncrewed test flight, but we do have a couple of purposeful passengers that have hopped a ride on board Orion. You're looking at one there on the left of your screen. That is Moonikin wearing the Orion crew survival suit. This is the space suit that crew will wear during dynamic phases of flight once we do have a crew on board, particularly during launch and entry situations.
Interesting, Thomas.
The OX, or Orion Crew Survival Suit, can help keep astronauts alive if Orion were to lose cabin pressure during the journey out to the moon. The OX is equipped to up to 6 days of life support systems as the crew makes their way back to Earth.
I don't know, Jungle.
And as part of this uncrewed test
cool.
flight, there's a variety of sensors and data that will be pulled from the Orion Crew Survival Suit to inform further design ahead of crewed flight test as part of Artemis 2.
It's not that much bigger than the Apollo one, but it is a fair bit bigger. This is like, this one can hold 4 people, for instance. Orion can hold up to 4. Apollo could only do 3. Yeah, and it has RGB lighting. Oh, very, very nice, very nice. Not as fancy as the Dragon. When you go beyond low Earth orbit, you're not really worrying about looks, dude. It's real Spartan interior. And keep in mind that interior is not finished. It'll look better when we get to a test flight. It'll look more Spartan than what SpaceX does. What's the flyby for? They're researching or just test flight? Veljex, that's actually a good question. They're testing out the onboard systems on Orion. So Orion, blue screen. Orion is, so the way I like to describe it to people is that Orion is a capsule and people do go on board. But it's like, think about it like half satellite, half capsule. What they're doing here on the first Artemis mission is they're testing the satellite part of it. This part down here. Now, don't get me wrong. You have like a half-completed capsule, and you just saw an interior shot of it, right? They're testing out the satellite versions. They're making sure Orion can sit out there in deep space, like outside of the magnetic field, for a long period of time. So if you're going to do that, sending it to the moon is a good place to do that. It's a good place to test the systems out because, you know, you can orbit around the moon, and it can stay there for a little while. So that's what they're doing. They did a close flyby of the moon, and now Orion's going to get shot out into a high lunar orbit, where they're going to stay for about a week, and then they'll initiate a return burn, and then they'll zoom past the moon and come back towards Earth. But what they're really doing is measuring the satellite part of the capsule. Not measuring. They're checking to make sure that it works. They're checking to make sure that Orion can sit out there for long periods of time. Because think about it in a future mission, right? You know, in a future mission, Orion will dock to the gateway and it'll sit out there, and then people will go down to the surface with a lander. And Orion's just going to need to sit out there in deep space for long periods of... Holy crap, look at that picture. It's going to need to sit out there for long periods of time, right? Yeah, see, that's what I mean about one star being a lot closer than all the other stars, so it gets... Yeah, okay. So really what they're testing right now is the satellite version. The satellite part of Orion. Now Artemis 2, the next mission, that should be in about a year, maybe a little bit more, probably a little bit more. Artemis 2 is going to... They're gonna know that the satellite version of the capsule works, and they're gonna test the capsule part of the capsule. Does that make sense? That's a pretty good shot. That's a live shot from the capsule looking back towards Earth. Now, if you turn this camera around, the moon would be like right there, but it's dark. So I'm not sure they're getting a good picture, guys. Because if they were, they would be showing it to us. Yeah, they'll just, yeah, I got you. No problem. That's us right there. Those little couple pixels on your screen. That's us.
And this view of our home planet, taken from 229,000 miles away from the Orion spacecraft, following its outbound powered flyby burn behind the moon.
It's more of it's a new design backyard. It's not that the information was misplaced. NASA wouldn't be able to put this thing into the right type of orbit if we didn't have the information from the Apollo program. Now, I know what they're...
At its closest approach, Orion flew 81 miles above the lunar surface.
It's just to piss you off, Supercraft. Yep. It's 370,000 kilometers from Earth right now, and you're about 128 kilometers off the surface of the moon. So, Boomer Backyard, NASA wouldn't be able to do this if they didn't have the information of the Apollo program. There's some, I don't know why, like, people on the internet, like, just, oh, NASA lost all the information. That's some stupid freaking rumor. That's not true at all. They wouldn't be able to do this if they didn't have the information from the Apollo program. It's more that this capsule is a new design. One of the biggest differences between the Apollo capsule and Orion is the Apollo capsule was using onboard fuel cells for electrical power, no solar panel. This thing is using solar panels because this capsule is not just designed to go back to the moon. This capsule will be able to be attached to larger vessels and then sent out to Mars. So solar panels make more sense. You don't want fuel cells when you're going outside of low Earth orbit. That doesn't make a whole lick of sense because you got all this power coming from this big, bright, pulsating thing in the sky. You can get a lot of power from that. And up there, you know, as opposed to like a solar panel down here, solar panels do work down here. They work pretty well. I mean, there are other ways to generate power. I understand that. You have gas diffusing through light, so you lose some of the kick that you get from solar panels. But up there, you don't have to worry about that. You're basically a straight shot line of sight to the sun. You don't have to worry about the gas getting diffused by an atmosphere. So the solar panel, each one of those solar panels can actually generate 16 kilowatts of power, which is, and there's 4 of them. That's a lot of power generation. That's pretty damn good, actually. That's a lot of power. Yeah, that is a lot of power. That's enough to power like a city block. Yeah, that's a lot of power. So, like, that's what they need to test, dude. They need to make sure these solar panels work. They make sure all the systems that they're powering are working out there in deep space. Like, they don't get fried by the radiation and stuff. That's really what they're testing. Yeah, exactly, Haji. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
We're now 5 days, 6 hours, and 27 minutes into
Those
the
are beastly
historic
solar
flight
panels.
of
And solar
Artemis
panels were
1.
great in space because there's no gas to
Orion
diffuse the light.
spacecraft just recently emerged from the backside of the moon after completing the outbound powered flyby.
Enough to power a 4090.
Coming up at MET 5 days, 6 hours, and 52 minutes, which is about 54 minutes after the OPF burnout. Orion is slated to fly extremely close to the Apollo 11 landing site. The Apollo 11 landing site, named Tranquility Base, was where Commander Neil Armstrong and Lunar Module pilot Buzz Aldrin touched down on July 20th, 1969, 53 years ago.
Nice, Macaput. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm trying. We can remake an F1 engine. It's fine. We could do it. It's bullcrap. They proposed the F1B program for SLS. We can do it. That's just... It's cheaper to make a new engine. Or use a solid, which is what we're doing.
As Orion continues to swing around the moon toward entry into distant retrograde orbit, we were just getting some views of the Earth from about 220,000 miles away. We do expect to get those views again here momentarily, but you are looking at a live view inside Mission Control Houston, where NASA Flight Director Judd Freeling is leading the team on console.
That's that guy right there. There's Zeb. Zeb is that Zeb Scoville? He's like a legendary shuttle flight director. If you have like if you had baseball cards of like NASA flight directors, that guy's like
33 minutes ago, Orion completed the outbound powered flyby burn, which lasted 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which sent Orion close enough to the lunar surface to leverage the moon's gravitational force and swing the spacecraft around the moon toward entry into distant retrograde orbit. Next up for Orion will be insertion into distant retrograde orbit, where it will remain for 1/2 long elliptical orbit around the moon. This period will last about days.
I agree, Paul. That would be really freaking cool. NASA baseball cards. I'd collect those.
Following this, Orion will complete a similar maneuver in which it flies behind the moon in a return power flyby.
That's right, Dutch guy.
And as you might expect, it's just the opposite of the outbound powered flyby. This maneuver will help put Orion on a trajectory to return back to Earth and splash down in the Pacific Ocean on December 11th.
Wouldn't that just be mission patches? I guess so. Hey, Muddy. Welcome to Mission Control. Go at throttle up. Thank you for the Prime sub. Appreciate it. Well, that's good, Box. I would want it for like flight directors and stuff, dude. Like I want a Gene Kranz trading card. That would be pretty sweet. And like have them for astronauts and stuff too. That'd be pretty sick. I missed the closest approach. What was the altitude? 128 kilometers, infinite taper, about 80 miles, give or take. They were in signal blackout during Paraloon. But yeah.
And another view of the flight director on console today during today's operations, Rick LeBrode.
Rick. Well, there you go. Rick. Add Edgar, I'm with you.
And coming into your view on your screen right there in the red jacket is the Johnson Space Center Center Director, Vanessa Weish.
Howard Hugh right there. He's the Orion spacecraft program manager. Did they get Duncan? No way. Have we had any good footage from Artemis? I'm gonna back up a little bit, guys. You tell me if that's good footage or not. I'll let you be the judge. Howard Hugh, not Howard Hughes. This was right before they went around the far side of the moon. I'd say that picture's pretty damn good. It looks like you're sitting with... Wait a minute. XLJ, what if I am? Yeah, Tessa, I'd say that looks a bit gray. Yeah, I'd say it's okay. It's pretty good. How fast are orbits around the moon in a circular orbit? What altitude, Pythos? Where whale is on the moon, we carry a harpoon. Good reference. 80 miles. It's somewhere around, I think it's like between, I'm going to say 1,500 to 3,000 miles an hour. I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head. Anyway, I'm going to get us back up to live, see if we have better views. Duncan. Oh. Oh, yeah, guy. Yeah. They got the freaking Duncan there, dude. That's what I'm talking about. Got the freaking Duncan right there. It's the only true proper donuts that you can get. I'm drinking Duncan right now. I got Dunk's coffee over here. That's what I'm talking about. They made sure that they got a nice box of dozen donuts right there. Got to make sure that you have coffee with your donuts. That is a Ford you are drinking out of, sir. Oh, congratulations, guy. You learned how to frickin' read. Now make sure you go over there and get your donuts before you're going over here busting my balls. Sorry, I just shared a little bit of the local dialect with you. Go frick yourself. What do you smoke, huh? What do you don't smoke, huh? What are you, one of those fitness freaks, huh? Go frick yourself. Microprocessors. I don't know what they are. You don't know what they are. Who gives a frick? Cash. Frick your life. They're not on the dark side, failures. They've already passed it. They've passed around the far side of the moon. Remember, dark side is a misnomer, right? I know what you meant. It's good. The close side to the moon is actually dark right now. That's why you have like a half moon and a quarter moon and a crescent moon, stuff like that. So the sun is actually on the far side of the moon. So the moon, just in case anybody doesn't know, the moon is tidally locked. So the moon does spin. It does spin. But it spins at one revolution per orbit. So it appears to kind of just be pointed towards Earth. It appears to be pointed towards Earth all the time. But it does spin. So the sun actually shines on the dark side of the moon. I'm going to go ahead and blame Pink Floyd for calling it that. That's pretty much their fault. Far side of the moon would be a better way to say it. The sun is shining on the far side of the moon right now. So they're on the close side of the moon, and they do have an acquisition of signal on the capsule. They can see it. It's within line of sight. But the side of the moon that's facing towards Earth actually is not facing towards the sun right now. So it is dark on the close side of the moon right now, and it's light on the dark side of the moon. Does that make sense? Is that one turn per orbit of the moon just luck, or is that physics? There's no luck in the universe. Physics. There's no luck up there. Yeah, that just kind of panned out right like that, Haji. I'm not exactly sure why it's doing that, but I don't think NASA has fully even figured out why it's like that. But, there's a bunch of different theories. I mean, the thing is not like, the crazy thing about it, guys, is that the moon doesn't have a uniform gravitational pull. That's another thing that's important to understand. The moon is kind of has a lopsided mass to it. So the moon actually doesn't stay perfectly pointed towards Earth. Like, if you could look at the moon and kind of, like, isolate, like you had a camera that was moving with the moon's orbit and you were looking at it, it actually does this.
And if you're just joining us, Orion has emerged from the backside of the moon after completing the outbound powered flyby 42 minutes ago.
Have we ever got daylight pictures on the dark side?
This burn lasted 2 minutes and 30 seconds and sent Orion close enough to the lunar surface to leverage the moon's gravitational force and swing the spacecraft once around the moon toward entry into distant retrograde orbit. Once inserted in the distant retrograde orbit, Orion will remain in the distant retrograde orbit for 1/2 elliptical orbit around the moon. This will last about 6 days.
Nice, Thomas. Very good. Are they going to stream re-entry? They should. So do other parts of the world have a different moon than us because it's rotating? Brimo, if you're in Australia, the moon would appear to be upside down as to like what we would normally see. Like, you know, when we normally see the moon up in the northern hemisphere, the gray is on the top, like the basaltic regions are towards the top. In Australia, it would be upside down. Oh, I really hope that was a telemetry update, or else the craft is spinning out of control. I'm pretty sure that was just a telemetry update. They had a signal handover because, yeah, that almost that if it did that in real life, that would be really bad. Yeah, but that's Australia. Everything's upside down. Yeah. Hello? NASA? Hello? This is fine. You want me to give him a call? I'll shoot him a text. I'll text Zeb right now. I don't have his number. That was a joke. Did you just mention Australia? No. No, Nazalite, I didn't. Australia doesn't exist. I've never seen it, so it doesn't exist. Seriously, you have places called Townsville. Townsville? Doesn't exist. It's fake. This is a joke. Please, just in case. I'm kidding. I know it exists. I get it. But also, we made it up. False. It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up. Where does Digi stream from? Digital Psychosis is part of the Borg contingent. Or no, he's from the Q Continuum. He's just a figment of your imagination. And he would probably admit that himself. Boston is fake because I've never seen it. Yeah, that's what the fake Australians would say. Chaos. Townsville? Townsville. You expecting me to believe a place like Townsville exists? Actually, what probably happened there was some guys are like, what should we name this place, mate? I don't know, mate. We just gotta go get the beer. Let's just name it freaking Townsville or something. Let's go drink. Righto. It's probably how that happened, if I had to guess. What about Townsend? Well, Townsend makes more sense. Wiser, that's a good one. But Mojo Jojo lives in Townsville. But that's a cartoon, Mike. Jeez. You expect me to believe there's a town in Massachusetts named Sandwich? Okay, that's fair. Okay, you got me on that one. To be fair, that's named after a British town. So, they started it. You can blame them. As an Aussie, Townsville is a pretty city.
We're just 6 minutes away from the anticipated flyover of the Apollo 11 landing site, Tranquility Base. We anticipate that flyover to occur at 7:37 a.m. Central.
Truth of Consequences is cool, Pathos. I've actually been there.
During the flyover, Orion will be 1,384 statute miles above the landing site.
What's the weirdest thing about Massachusetts cities? Yes. What's the delay of footage due to distance? Jester, it's not too bad. Couple seconds. Yeah, no. Moon is, in terms of like light speed, the moon is not very far away. Yeah, not very far. EJ, here in Denmark, we have a town called Middelfart. Does it smell, Paul? Are we gonna get landing site pictures? The Apollo, it's flying over the Apollo sites right now, Bree. To be honest with you, it's just dark. You can't see anything. That's cool, Karavik. Right on. Yep, that's a good picture, Penta. Yeah, the moon's tidally locked, but it does have perturbations. Look, that's the picture I was thinking of. Look, see, the moon kind of weeble wobbles around. You getting sick? How do you justify okay Oklahoma? It seems like an okay place to be. We have hell in Norway? I'd believe that. There's volcanoes and stuff, Radar. That makes sense. Can Orion make IR photos in the dark of the moon? They might be able to, Haji. Yeah, maybe they are. Maybe we'll get pictures of it.
And you are looking at a live view inside Mission Control Houston, where NASA Flight Director Rick LeBrode is on console, leading the team here in Mission Control following the outbound powered flyby burn, which occurred 49 minutes ago. This 2-minute and 30-second burn utilized the Orbital Maneuvering System, or OMS engine, on board the Orion spacecraft and helped set the stage for distant retrograde insertion.
There's a town called Batman in Turkey. Nice, Manuel. Nice. Nice. Yeah, Jello mold, Karavik. It's like a giant Jello mold. I hate Jello. Oh, come on, man. There's always room for Jello. Tell them about the Twinkie. You know a good place online where I can buy small table models of spacecraft like the lunar lander? I don't know of anything particularly off the top of my head, Paul. Look on eBay. I'm sure you could find something good on there. What about the Twinkie? Tell them about the Twinkie. That's right, Droogie. I love Bill Murray. I do. I'm a Bill Murray fan. I celebrate the man's entire catalog. The references. They're merging. Even Scrooged? We don't talk about Scrooged. Oh, nice, Drew. Right on, man. You have a favorite Bill Murray movie? Oh, nice, Tessa. That's good to know. He literally saved Michael Jordan's life. I agree, Porter. Yep. Let's see. Favorite Bill Murray movie. Stripes is pretty good. Stripes. Or Caddyshack. You don't like Scrooge? That's one of my must-see Christmas movies. Die Hard's at the top of my must-see Christmas movies. And yes, it is a Christmas movie. And you could say that it's not.
We're now 2 minutes away from the anticipated flyover of the Apollo 11 landing site, Tranquility Base. Orion will be 1,384 statute miles above the landing site.
Hey, Christmas is central to the plot of Die Hard. If it was not Christmas, the movie wouldn't exist. Okay? It's a Christmas movie. Christmas is central to the plot. It's a Christmas movie. Okay? Anybody that says otherwise doesn't understand how movie scripts work. That's fair. That's fair. How about Jingle All the Way? Imagine if they had a cast like Bill Murray in Castaway instead of Tom Hanks. Okay. Home Alone is a PG version of Die Hard. Yes, that is correct. Telemetry-driven animation equals we play KSP too. Yep, I think that's right, Ozzy. Anyway. Groundhog Day is the essential Christmas movie for you. Okay, all right. Interesting, Manta. Home Alone is the prequel to Saw.
And at this time, we do expect Orion to be flying over the Apollo 11 landing site at Tranquility Base. Orion is 1,384 statute miles above the landing site.
Houston. Tranquility Base here.
Tranquility Base was where Commander Neil Armstrong and lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon for the very first time on July 20th, 1969, 53 years ago.
That's a little strange, Chaos, but yeah, it should be if this map is even remotely close to right, it's pretty much right there. See where that speck is? No, that's not it, but you wouldn't be able to see the lander from here. It's right there. Right on the edge of the lunar basaltic region. See this darker gray? That's lunar lowland. Lunar lower lands, like if there was a sea level on the moon, that would be closer to it. And then there's the lighter gray areas, which are lunar highlands. The reason why you have the lunar lowlands is because of impacts from whatever made the moon. It scraped some of the top off, so you got down to the lower basaltic regions. Now, what are the basaltic regions made out of? It's rocks. It's rocks. Lots of rocks. There are minerals down there. There's iron, nickel, all kinds of stuff in the basaltic regions. The composition of the moon, from what we understand, is fairly similar to Earth because it's like right there. Earth is like right over there. Maybe some cheese. Yep, maybe some cheese. Mare Tranquillitatis. Yep. Nice, Penta. Who dropped some nickels there? Yeah, I don't know. It's maybe Neil did. Lots of minerals in the form of rocks. What are rocks but just a bunch of metals that have just been all melded together? Geologists are going, yeah, that's kind of what a rock is. You know what? Not everybody knows that, okay? All right? Jeez. Not everybody knows that. Could you imagine a green-blue moon? No, but I can imagine an orange moon. That's right. Orange. Can you imagine an orange moon? It's nice. We did see some smoke a second ago. That's a real picture, guys. Jack Smith and Gene Cernan started digging around on the moon. They actually had the wherewithal to send a geologist up there with a shovel. And he started digging around, and they found orange rocks in orange regolith. Yeah. It's leftover deposits from lava and whatnot. Yeah, pretty crazy. That's just underneath the surface. And this is what I mean, man. That's why we need to go back to the moon, because we've literally only scratched the surface. It's all kinds of stuff, but yeah, pretty sweet. Now, Smoked, have we seen good views? We had a good view when they were approaching the moon right before Flyby. We got a shot, and now keep in mind, I'm rewinding a little bit. We got a shot like that. Now, I don't know about you. That's a pretty awesome picture. And I'm really happy I was here to share it with you guys.
Again, if you're just joining us, you are looking at a view from the solar array.
I'm not gonna do that in case anybody hears it. This was like an hour ago. An hour and 20 minutes into the video, Big C. We have gotten some pretty good views. Please hold. We've gotten some pretty good views since then, like that one. That one's pretty sweet. You can see Snoopy just chilling over there. Just got a bunch of shots of Mission Control since. They haven't really given us much of an update. This is back over to live here. I don't see anybody that looks particularly worried here. Are the rumors of craters in which there are zones with a constant temperature of 17 Celsius true? Yes.
The moon at a distance of 80 miles above the surface. That will wrap up our coverage for today, but we'll continue to post daily updates about the mission on the Artemis blog at blogs.nasa.gov/Artemis. And we'll also be posting updates on our social media accounts as well. Later today, we'll have a briefing at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, where representatives from NASA will discuss the outbound powered flyby, which we hope you'll tune in for. And we'll be live on NASA TV covering the distant retrograde orbit insertion Friday beginning at 3:30 p.m. Central, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, this is Mission Control Houston.
Sandra did a good job. She really did. I'm just going to go back to looking at this shot if you don't mind. I know, Smoked. Isn't it wild, dude? And yeah. I'm gonna pack it in here too, fellas, in a second. I'll be back at noontime, but also I just, oh my goodness. Oh, that's overwhelming, man. That's some stuff right there, Slacker. You ain't kidding. Yeah, it's a Rodra. Mm-hmm. Hands? No, I'm good. No, it's good. Dude. I just... Now, Penta, I'll be back tomorrow, and I'll be back a little bit later today. That's a whole lot of cheese. Indeed. We should go get some, Huge. I'm with you. We should get some. Let's go get some of it. I can't believe that picture, man. I mean, I guess I have to. I'm looking at it. But also... Wow. What a shot. That's pretty good. And you know what the best part? You know what the best part is? This is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. Every mission, we're going to get better and better pictures until we're back down on the surface of this fricker. Back down on the surface of that thing. Just turn off the mics and cameras and leave this for the next 3 hours. Oh, here. Like, you know what's crazy about this? Here, watch. You can actually see the orbit that it's in if you just time zoom. Look at that! Oh, that's so freaking cool, man. Come on. Come on. That's so good.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Dude, what the hell? How did we get here? That's so cool. Oh my goodness. Haji, thanks for the stream. Absolutely, guys. So I'll be back here in a couple of hours at noontime. We'll jump into KSP. I got to show you guys the robotic arm we cooked up the other day for our shuttle. I'm still using shuttles in my Kerbal save because I can. So I'll be back in a little bit. Garrett, take it easy. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'll see you in about 3 hours. I'm gonna go take a nap.